Okay, at 7 o'clock, we'll go ahead and get the Board of Zoning Appeals meeting started for tonight, August the 7th. There are Title 5 forms, Title 6 forms in the back of the room if anyone wants to complete those in an anonymous survey. We'll begin the meeting tonight with the approval of the minutes from the March 6, 2024. You all should have received those minutes. Any additions or corrections? Seeing none, I'll look for a motion.
I make the motion that we accept them as Neil.
A motion and second to accept the minutes of the March 6th meeting. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Minutes pass. Okay. Also have minutes from the May 1st meeting, which need to be approved. You should receive those as well. Any additions or corrections? Seeing none, I'll look for a motion.
Make a motion to accept the May minutes.
A second. I have a motion and a second to approve the minutes from May 1st. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Minutes from the May 1st meeting passes. Okay, first item on the agenda tonight is the BZA petition 2024-6. Kyle Lowry is requesting a variance from the required 70 foot from the center of the road front setback to approximately 35 foot from the center road to build a 30 by 40 building. The request falls under Decatur County Ordinance 945. The property is currently owned by the petitioner and is located at 393 East, County Road 580 North in Greensburg in Clinton Township. Kyle, if you can come to the podium and describe what's got going on.
Microphone.
Right here is fine? Okay.
Microphone, podium.
Okay, thanks for having me tonight. Crowd. Right, no pressure, right?
Not at all. Go ahead, tell us what you got going on.
Okay, so what I'm doing is I'm trying to obviously build a building. I have one on the property. My property is very unique. It's the topography is very interesting. So it leaves very little room to place a building. Obviously my family's expanded. I don't have enough rooms in my house, so I have to expand on that and turn my existing garage that's attached into 2 bedrooms, and obviously have all the stuff that goes in the regular garage. I need to move it to a building. My current building is too small. I need to make it a little bigger. And the math works out for a 30 by 40. I may have to go smaller. I'm really not trying to get too close to the road. The existing building is about where I want to terminate this building. It's just larger, and I know because of this process, I have to go through this. Creek Center probably did the same thing, but just the permitting and everything, that's why we're here. I looked at where I could possibly put this on the other parts of the property, just nothing works. Where my leach field is, where my septic, the creek, I have a quarry. It's just the only spot is right here on my driveway. So, and I know it kind of creeps up on the road. That's really where I'm at. That's what I have to do. So, I had some materials. I don't know if I turned them over to the team here, and you have a chance to review that, but you did. So, I hope everything was mostly answered in that. By trade, I'm an engineer, so of course it's maybe a little overdone. But, so yeah, that's what I got to do. So.
Okay, thank you. Any questions from the board?
There's just not going to be any danger of maybe a car coming down the road and running into this, or?
No, the way it sits off to the side,
right.
There's a curve in the road and there's a crest. There's actually a telephone pole right there already. So I'm not adding anything that's not already there. And it's been there, I think, 2009 or so that previous building was built, and I never had any issues with Creek Center or John either. So I don't think so. You can see it from a ways away.
Anything else?
I'm familiar with the area. I understand the guidelines are in place to try and get some standards and understand the position you're in. That's why this board exists to hear these unique situations.
Thank you. Anybody from the public? Any comments? Seeing none. Any final comments, questions? Look for a motion.
Make it.
I move we vote on petition 2024-6.
Second.
I'll read the votes. Rick Coing, yes. Janie Livingston, yes. Paul Stone, yes. Scott Smith, yes. And Joyce Brindley, yes.
Congratulations, your variance is passed. Please continue to work with the girls in the office to further the project.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Moving on to BZA position 2024-2, RWE Clean Energy and Greensburg Solar LLC will present BZA petition 2024-2 requesting a special exception to place a commercial solar energy facility on several parcels. The request falls under Decatur County Ordinance Article 20. The property is currently owned by 15 property owners and is located in Washington and Clinton Township. Before we begin this section of the meeting tonight, I want a little lay out some procedures and expectations. It's my hope as a community we can act in a civil and respectful manner to everyone here and respect everyone's opinion and treat everyone equally and fairly. Our intent is to possibly hold a vote on this matter tonight as it's been pressing within the community. However, we have been inundated with information this week and we are still trying to process that as a board and hope that we can get some of those questions answered tonight. Obviously, the petitioner will open the meeting with comments. From that point forward, we'll have all public comments limited to 3 minutes. However, if the board is and the public member speaking has pertinent information, we may extend that time period. With respect of everyone's time, we have several signed up to speak tonight. Please keep your topics with relative new information. If we feel like the topics are repetitive, we may cut you off. Don't take that into disrespect. It is just we're simply trying to get as much information together as possible. Having said that, Francisco.
Can the board hear me? Yep. So I first of all want to thank the board once again this evening for making the time to follow up on our introductory conversation about the solar project. Greensburg Solar is the name of the project. As you know, this is essentially the team that we have with us this evening to present. Kick it off, obviously you know me, Francisco Arellano. I am the development lead. We have Mary Soliday from Denton. She is our local attorney. We have Colin Kennedy and Baron Deck representing Hoosier Solar Bracing. And Baron is a Decatur County resident, and some of you may know, farmer and also sheep raiser. We have Paul Wyman from the Wyman Group, who will be referring to the property values topic as Rich, or in this case, Nick Kirkland, and we have Rich Kirkland on the line. Tommy Cleveland is on the line as well to speak about health and safety matters. Jeremy Keebner from our environmental group, and last but not least, Ben Harvey from Stantec, our engineering consultant. Excuse me, so purpose and agenda of this presentation. So we first of all want to provide responses to the questions that were raised during our March 6th meeting, the BZA hearing. And secondly, we want to provide additional information that we've come across and produced instead to hopefully show the board, or definitely show the board, that the project meets and exceeds the county solar ordinance provisions and is consistent with the comprehensive plan and the findings of fact. So with that, following that, then the introduction. Basically, I'm going to go a little bit into the details of the ordinance very quickly, and look briefly at the vision and principles that actually come from the comprehensive plan, the county comprehensive plan. And then I'll go into the details of how it is that we've gone about meeting those ordinance provisions, broken down into how we've gone about designing the project and how we would take care of the topsoil, which we'll get back to that, but it's a very important topic throughout construction and during operations. And then we'll take a step back, if you will, and look at property values, health and safety, concerns and considerations, findings of fact, and lastly, we will look at a series of conditions that, as a company, we're committing to meet in order for the project to come through, to move forward. I think I'll go over this one very quickly. So for everybody's reference, the size of the project, 140 megawatt project located in Clinton and Washington counties. So it's big enough to power around 24,000 homes. The project footprint, so the area inside the fence is about 920 acres or so. We have 30 participating landowners, families included, 15 leases, connecting to the Greensburg switching substation, so that's south of the school. Construction and operations expected to begin maybe Q4 of 2026. Investment amount, $250 million. So I'll try to go quickly so that we can have more important people take over. So, introduction. So basically, what I want to do is just bring us to the comprehensive plan very quickly, excuse me. So there's definitely a common theme within the comprehensive plan, which is that we want to preserve the agricultural character of Decatur County. We want to preserve prime land while reaching a balance, while protecting private property rights. Right? So we want to, the idea is to maximize the contiguity by, and this is really important, directing housing and residential growth away from tillable land. And also, as I mentioned before, protecting the agricultural character of the county. Secondly, it's very important for the county to protect agricultural operations and limit the amount of land taken out of production. So that's number one, that's sort of, once again, vision and values. Then going to the ordinance in particular, right? So referring specifically to section 2004, the special exceptions, which state that commercial solar energy facilities are permitted as a special exception in agricultural zones A1, A2, or in those zoning districts when approved by the BZA. So that's, I think, the general setting, and this is the reference within I want to speak and present, or we are. So this is a little bit more of a detail. So these are the parameters that we've used again, taken from both the comprehensive plan as well as the ordinance. And that's what we use as a guideline, if you will, for our development work and design. So firstly, visual impact. So we need to have innovative camouflaging techniques. What has been, excuse me, one quick second. Right, okay, so excuse me, let me take a quick step back, right? So on the left column, you'll see the provisions from the ordinance and some considerations, excuse me, from the comprehensive plan. The central column is what the project is proposing, and the column to the right is the result that we've achieved based on the work that we've done, right? So number one, once again, visual impact. We want to minimize the visual impact by including innovating camouflaging techniques. And what we're proposing is that actually, apart from doing that camouflaging or achieving that camouflaging, we're actually adding farm ground to the project within the project setbacks. And I'll go into further detail there, so we're meeting that one. The setback requirements in the zoning ordinance are 70 feet away from center of road to the edge of the structure, as well as 15 feet from properties. And what we have is 250 feet setbacks from center of road to the project fence, that is about 3/4 of a football field, as well as vegetative screens outside of the fence. So we've definitely exceeded the requirements. The compatibility with land use. As we will discuss, the project would actually launch a new business venture, which is agricultural in nature. The noise level requirements, they're about 15 decibels max. I'm sorry for the number, but it follows the order, excuse me, and our design actually complies with that requirement. Public health, safety, and morals, comfort, or general welfare of the community. So this project, as you will see, is out of sight, quiet, safe. And apart from that, and that's at the end, RWE as a company commit to using equipment and particularly panels that do not contain cadmium telluride, GNX, or PFAS. And then lastly, help protect from residential development, which I actually have not to wrong, but it doesn't matter. So basically what we're addressing here is, look at the very real concern of having residential development and further subdivision of parcels north of 74 happening during the future. And in particular, you will see, because of the project's proximity to the I-74 State Road 3 interconnect. So that has been exceeded. Okay, so how is it that we're going about meeting the ordinance provisions, as I was mentioning before? The first portion of it has to do with the careful curbing design. So this is where I come back. I'll bring you back to the March 6th meeting. So a number of points came up. Since then, what we have done is gone essentially back to the drawing board and completed hydrology, geotechnical, and grading studies, incorporated all of those into the design. And with that, then, we have, obviously, we're working with a group of engineers, so the standards are definitely going to meet the provisions of the solar ordinance in Decatur County, county, state, and federal stormwater management ordinances, very important and requirements. And as I will describe, it's going to be consistent with the findings of fact. Mary is going to provide further detail on those. And then the second point is, okay, well, the design, that's great, construction is great. What's going to happen with topsoil, which was a big question? Well, there's going to be topsoil preservation, and that's divided into two portions, right? So what happens to the topsoil and the land during construction? So Stanley is going to speak to that. And basically, there's going to be minimal grading, which means that there's going to be light construction. And during construction, there will be seeding, mulching, and other measures to minimize erosion and runoff. And during operations, okay, well, how do we take care of the topsoil health during the 35 or 40-year period of operations? Well, we're going to have a dual use of land, which includes pollinators, but primarily it would include rotation of sheep grazing, and we have our two experts here who are going to go into the details of that. I'll start very quickly again. The careful project design. Just to remind everyone, and very important clarifications, the total leased area or acreage is 1,800 acres. That's under lease. However, the acreage inside the fence, which is what you see on the side lines, inside the fence, which implies equipment is placed within that, adds up to 920 acres. Then we've incorporated 250-foot setbacks, as I mentioned, from the center of major county roads. So I'm talking about 200 north, 120 east, 300 north, and 500 north. And, from the project fence, as well as from the property lines of directly neighboring or direct neighbors to the project. Neighbors directly abutting the project, excuse me. So what does that mean? Amongst other things, that you're creating 60 acres of tillable land that would separate public roads from the fence of the project, and we will go into visuals about that. And we will create 3 miles of vegetative screens that will stand right outside of those project fences, as I just mentioned. And so therefore, between that and the land that is already existing, which is farm, the project perimeter will be a combination of setbacks and land currently being farmed. So with that, we can take a look at the map. So the area in blue is what I said is inside the fence. So those are the 900 acres. And I've broken it, excuse me. To go into the details of what has happened with setbacks and fences, not fences, vegetative screens, I've broken the map down into 4 different areas. Let's move on. So area number 1, which is 500 north. You can see that once again the design incorporates a 250-foot setback. The bright green line, represents a vegetative screen right outside of the setback. And just to get an idea, the project fence to the west stands 1,300 feet from the closest property line to the west of the project. So we move on to area number 2. This is a little bit busy. The slide is a little bit busy. The road is definitely very busy. So what we've done is, that is, by the way, 300 north. So what we have done is, once again, 250-foot setbacks from either side of the road. If you look at the northwestern property, you'll see that there's also a 250-foot setback from property sides, not from property structures, but from the sides of the properties. And one of the things that we've done very actively is actually reached out to project neighbors. We've canvassed the project numerous times. And in this particular instance, one of the neighbors got back to us. We had a brief conversation and heard their concerns about proximity and visual impact, basically. And we said, okay, we'll do what we can along these lines, right? Which is setbacks and screens. So you can see that they're actually 400 feet, or rather, excuse me, the project fence is set back 400 feet from the center road right next to their property, and their property itself, the property line, is set back 700 feet from the property, so between property line and fence. So, whenever we've been able to, we've made accommodations. Otherwise, we've sort of defined a wholesale setback of 250 feet. And the vegetative screens, as I mentioned, these, once again, is area 3, which, excuse me, brings us to 200 north and 120 east. And that's, once again, just brings us back to this, right? Areas 1 through 4. Sorry, this is the last area. This is a participating landowner, again, directly contiguous to the project. Same concept, 250 feet setbacks between his property line and the project fence. So basically, what does that mean? What does that translate to in terms of project visibility or visual impact? On the left, you have two scenarios, right? So you either have an instance in which the land is not farmed at all, so it's covered in grass. 250 feet back, what do you see? You will see the vegetative screen, and then beyond that, that's where the equipment is at. Once again, that's either, well, in this case you have beans planted, but you could have anything else, frankly, grass, etc., etc. To the right, you have corn, right? So in 250 feet, you can fit around 60 to 100 rows of corn. So basically, you would see what you see on the right-hand side, which is corn, right? There would be no difference there.
Was Area 3 covered there, Francisco? There you go.
Yes. Sorry, Paul, I broke it down, if I may. I broke it down into two because it's pretty...
That's fine. Can you go back or three? Yeah, just for a second there.
Sure.
The dead space inside of the fence without panels, there appear to be intentional empty areas. And I'm just curious, maybe go back to 2, for example. There you go. So on the north edge of the south field,
Yes.
the large and the east end of that, is there a reason for having a lot of area not covered inside the fence?
Yeah, my understanding, and Ben, correct me if I'm wrong, but what you have is that the lengths of the rows are standard.
Okay.
So they're not like smaller Lego pieces, if you will. So you cannot fill in every gap. That is my understanding, but Ben can, yeah. That is.
We can address it later. Just curious.
Sure, standard size. Okay, so with this, I'll just move on to construction, which is the second point, right? So we have the design, and then we go on to what we have done in terms of design, grading, so on and so forth. So I'll just hand it over to Ben Harvey.
Thank you very much. So, I think, overall, I think the preservation of topsoil and the preservation of just agricultural land was probably one of those high considerations. I think that's one that RWE expressed as we were going through design to really prioritize, and then they've also done some things to go above and beyond, I guess, what a lot of projects would do to do that. So there's a few things, and I guess this point isn't actually on the slide, but I think the first part of topsoil and agricultural preservation and preventing erosion is just how you lay out the site overall. You generally are going to avoid areas with any streams or any concentrated flow or areas that would be really difficult to work or to keep, I guess, soil in one place on. So that's kind of the first initial cut that happens. And then beyond that, I think we've done a lot of design changes to try and make sure that as much as possible you're minimizing overall disturbance of the ground and especially cut and fill, so site grading. The 57 acres of overall what's called grading is actually the overall amount of disturbed ground, period. So that would include, lay down areas, roads, any additional areas that, are kind of incidental to the project or required to actually build. And then the actual total number of graded acres is 8. it's right around 8 acres total. And so-
That's cut.
Yeah, that would be cut and fill. And so the idea with those would be you remove the topsoil, you change the elevations to be close to the existing or close to the planned elevation, then you respread that topsoil back on top. And just with that amount, if you keep it that small, typically that's going to happen a lot faster than a site where you're doing a whole lot of major earthwork. There's a number of other things that they put into some of their other documentation, but I think the idea is that no topsoil is ever going to leave this site. That's going to become a provision in the design, and they're going to make sure that carries through. And then there are additional erosion control measures, I guess, the second point. So a lot of that is what would be performed for typical construction work. And then I think they've kind of gone above with what they've proposed to just make sure that as much as possible there's the minimum amount of erosion on the project. So I'll go through just kind of some general images fairly quickly, I hope, on construction process. So one thing that they've committed to, which you don't always see, is they've committed to seeding everything ahead of time. So in areas that don't get graded or in any place you can, they will put down the permanent seed mix that's going to go and let that get established before they start, which does a lot to just keep soil and topsoil in place. And then in areas where they are grading, they may do a temporary seed mix, but the idea would be that those are stabilized before the construction happens and then as soon as possible after that work ends. So generally these are kind of the things that would disturb the project area. You build access roads to get in there. The grading is more than likely pretty small equipment just because of the volume and the amount. Usually cabling is all done kind of in one process with a specialized machine that they go pretty quick. And then the bottom left is an actual site where it essentially was pre-construction seeded, and then most of it is already stabilized by the time they actually start a lot of the construction work. So that, just general examples, the pile driving that's a very standard sort of machine that they use that can go really quickly and kind of put the small equipment or the small piles in place. They connect everything, get panels on there, and at that point, once it's basically wired, they will finish out anything that was disturbed or needs to be finished, and then obviously that would be an operating facility on the bottom right. So I think I'm turning it over now to the grazing folks as well.
Okay, so just very quickly, so we have Baron Beck, and we have Colin Kennedy.
I want everybody to be honest with you. Hello, I'm Baron Deck, a resident community farmer, and I'm here tonight to talk along with Colin here about how agrivoltaics, agriculture combined with these solar fields can not only regenerate our community, but possibly even the soil that these fields are on. I was first brought to this when Francisco came to our local soil and water meeting the Monday before you guys' meeting back in March here. And that's when it was brought to my attention that they were interested in raising sheep on these facilities, and that sparked my interest and began exploring it more, did my own research, and had the opportunity to go to Chicago to the North American Solar Grazing Summit. And they really had my eyes open to the scope of possibilities, that are being done underneath these. There was people there, everything from row crops to small gardens underneath panels, blackberries growing on the fencing outside of them, things that are able to put back in the community food sources. But the biggest thing, the most successful thing across all of these facilities is the sheep grazing and what it can do. And I'd like Colin to talk about what he's been able to have success with there.
Yeah, so we, Cruiser Solar is my family's operation. We actually graze a site in Henry Rush County line up in there, about 500 acres right now. And so what we do is we bring the sheep out to site in early spring, about 1st of April, and they actually stay out on site all the way into the fall, about September, October, just depending on vegetation growth and how things progress. And so when we actually get out on site, we actually subdivide the entire site and we utilize rotational grazing, which just means we put that into smaller paddocks, and the sheep only stay in each of those paddocks for 4 to 5 days and then get rotated through. That actually helps the topsoil with being able to utilize the sheep's manure as it's evenly distributed across the entire site as opposed to in just a one spot. And giving that grass 30-40 day rest after each rotation, which actually also helps with erosion, with letting that grass rebound and let the root systems continue to stay strong. So it does help with both of those things. So that's what this is our. We've been doing that for a few years now, and are continuing to expand.
So like we said, we're talking, hopefully being able to, if this project goes forward in here, be able to run a fairly large sheep herd. And I think what this would possibly be able to do for our community is create opportunities for a vast amount of other farmers or people with inspiration to become farmers. What we're looking at doing is developing a co-op of local growers who either want to diversify the operation they have now, possibly by bringing sheep into it, or people that have sheep, which there is a surprising amount in Decatur County of good sheep growers, and talking with a few of them. I have roughly 4 guys outside of myself available at this moment that are very interested in the opportunities financially they could have going forward with sheep raising. Colin can hit on this too. He was actually a part of this study. This is a study done by the University of Illinois. You remember when that? It was within the last year.
It was last year, yes.
Yeah. So they reached out to a lot of people that have had success, or had solar grazing sites and had success with it, and asked them, did surveys, asked questions, what their experience had been like. So if you're looking through here, average months on grazing 6.5. I mean, I think that's something we would hopefully see a lot more of. But so it shows you the scope of this. A lot of these are out east. As you can see, I think adding something like this to an existing farming operation wouldn't take a vast amount of time, would add diversity, but at the same time be able to utilize a lot of infrastructure we already have today.
Sorry, one question, Colin. So, to clarify, is that they could expand? I understand not all sheep would be bull sheep. There would be some hair sheep, but you would be also increasing the production or the actual output of meat. So what are the figures there?
The figures would be when this site with RWE is fully stocked, it would actually produce per year on nearly 700,000 pounds of lamb and over 30,000 pounds of wool, and that would be each year that we would be on it.
And where are those local markets at?
They vary. There's a couple of local buyers actually in southern Indiana. We have a guy in Greenfield, and we actually hit a lot of regional markets. So Mount Hope, Ohio, Manchester, Michigan, and Shipshewana, Indiana. So it just kind of depends on the size of your land that you're selling and kind of what the market's want at the time.
Do those current facilities have capacity for expansion such as this?
Yes. So Manchester, Michigan runs for over 1,000 head every week. Shipshewana is at 1,500 head, and Mount Hope's even bigger than both of those.
But they have expanded capacity above what they're currently doing to handle additional.
because these lands will actually, a lot of them will end up, whether it's locally or if they do end up in those markets, they'll go east to New York where more of the buyers are. So they have capacity for plenty more. So, because actually in the western United States, the sheep supply is actually lowering. So this is actually an opportunity to kind of fill that gap.
It seems in conversations, with other solar grazers and sheep industry as a whole, this just solar as alone is making a huge impact on the sheep industry, making those older ewes worth a lot more. So that's kind of drying up that market and making opportunities elsewhere. We have a video here. The American Solar Grazing Association put out. They have a documentary coming out here in October, but this is the trailer for it. I thought we'd like to share.
Farmers are the eternal optimists. We see a better way for this. No one else is doing it, so we're going to have to do it ourselves.
When people think of a farm, they think of white fences and green pastures, and my farm is not like that. You know those big solar fields? The grass has to be mowed, so instead of mowing it, I graze sheep on it.
Someone's paying you to feed your own animals and paying you well.
We call this land jam.
I wanted to be able to keep the agriculture in our family.
I couldn't figure out a way to make the farm work.
Farmers, they lost their homes.
It was so difficult. There was the light at the end of the tunnel where we saw, hey, we can do this.
Having the extra land is what made it a viable business for me.
Very few opportunities offer the ability to combine two things.
It pairs the strength of one industry with the strength of another.
The solar industry, we really think that we can do better and kind of set a new standard, set a new bar for how we're taking care of this land.
This is so much bigger than we ever thought it would be.
There's so much opportunity here.
Any questions so far?
The number may have been there. Approximately how many head per acre, or what do you anticipate if this were to move forward? How big would this be on this project?
So starting out, with the reseeding, you'll graze a little bit less, not as intensively. So it will start out at probably 2 head per acre, and it'll then expand to either 3 to 4 per acre, depending on how strong that vegetation comes in. So, for example, the site we're on now, some areas we're still at 2, other areas we've been able to bump up to 3, and our best spot we actually are at 4 per acre right now.
How hard is it to source those kind of numbers as far as getting animals in here?
It truly depends on whether you're going with hair or wool. So, for example, for me, I actually shear sheep, so I'm more apt to get wool sheep in, and we have a lot of connections in the western U.S. Where once again, there's still the majority of the sheep are out there, so we have the capability to bring in. We could get multiple 50,000 in pretty quickly if we needed to.
On that, Scott, I think getting them in is the easy thing to do. I think the long-term plan is we want sheep that have been raised locally, in southern Indiana to be resistant. Have that. What I look for, I know this is different than cod. I look for that like easy care to cod, and something that's not going to need a lot of maintenance, something that's going to go out there and work and do its thing and not need much else. But I think that will be created, locally. That will be genetics we build up right here.
How do they move? You said they move the sheep, kind of rotate them around. So what type of barrier do you use? How do you section off?
It's temporary fencing where we just use simple PVC posts with temporary wires. And so what we do now is we just go set up 4 or 5 paddocks at a time, and so it's already set up and it's ready to go. And then at the end of the season, we can actually take all that down so that maintenance or things of that nature, they still have access to everything. So that's our main way of doing it right now.
seems obvious to me, talking to people like Paul that have been on a lot of operator, you've been on soil fields that have had experience in this. The biggest thing comes down to whether an operation is successful or fails. It's just being able to plan well ahead and work together on it. I think the sooner the grazer or whoever's going to be in charge of all that gets in contact and works with the developer to make sure that there's a good plan put ahead of time, it's way more likely they're going to be successful. I think as you look at things like erosion and some of that, it's the solar grazer is the person that's going to be out there, day after day, that's going to see those things and make sure they're taken care of, if that makes sense.
So these sheep are gonna graze 6.5 months a year, is that what I'm
That was an average. I feel like in our climate, and that it all depends on the year. I mean, everything varies significantly. Correct me if I'm wrong, Colin, but I think we're looking at like a April to maybe October, late September, October.
And there's opportunities for stockpiling forage to where if you wanted to go later, I know some people that are doing that here in the state, in the Midwest area. For example, if you go farther south to Texas, they actually keep them out there all year, but obviously different climate, different growth pattern.
So how do they have access to water?
That we truck in water, and so for example, like on the sites we're on, there's a well there where we just pump the water and then take it around to each section. And really with good vegetation, they honestly don't drink a ton of water. Now we always have it there for them just in case on hot days, but they honestly get a lot of that water from the grass.
Where would the sheep reside when they're not grazing?
Throughout the community. I think, truly though, you laugh, but I think you drive around and you look, there's no shortage of opportunities, things that are just bush hogged or left neglected. What led me down the road of getting into sheep to begin with, it was buying a farm that had a lot of rough acreage on it. You look at this, what we pay for this land and how we're going to maximize it. You can't just do it out there in the row crops. Where else can I take something and make some money off of it? So I think, once again, you got to step back and look at the scope of the whole thing and see where the opportunities can be downstream, not just on this,
So I just wanted to point something out pretty quickly. So the illustration, that is actually the Big Star solar project down in Texas. It's a 200 megawatt solar project that belongs to RWB. So it's similar in size to the Greensburg solar project. Obviously sheep, but what I wanted to bring the board's attention to is if you see the panels are not level. So that is consistent with what we were talking about in terms of there's minimum grading here. And so because of technology, the panels are able to follow the contour of the land. So this is not what you imagine. We need to have flat as a pancake land, totally graded. No, the technology has come a long way, so we can definitely work for it with some topography.
And I think we hear a lot about topsoil degradation. What is that is what I really question. I feel like I know I can go stick a spade in the ground and tell you good topsoil from bad. We don't have a lot of ways of even testing that. There's the Haney test. We can check organic matter. We can look at different spectrums like that. I think that's another opportunity we got to look at from this is there something we can learn from this, from removing it from classical row crops and taking some of that stuff away. What can we learn and see and measure possibly what this is doing to the topsoil? Because that's the only way we're going to know. We're on the bleeding edge of this, there's no doubt. And I think that's why instead of taking the approach of being aggressively negative towards it, I think we need to possibly embrace it and look at how it can work better for our community and us. As you talk about agriculture in Decatur County and what it means to this county. And I know it's this board's hope to preserve and make agriculture be an important part of our community going forward. I pulled these numbers off the USDA census survey they send out every year. Just to look at a breakdown of what went on in this county in 1969 versus now. That's our animal inventories. 34,000 cattle, now we got 16. We do have more hogs, it's just a shame that somebody else owns most of them. At some time we had almost 4,000 sheep. That's blows my mind, you think about 38,000 hens. But if you look over at the gross sales in 1969, 28% of it was based off of row crops, 72% off of livestock. Now that's 53 and 47.
Okay.
Any questions? Thank you.
Okay, I'll run through this point very quickly so that we can move on to the next section. So, once again, how are we going about meeting the ordinance provisions? I think what we've seen is that the project is not going to take the place of agricultural land. It would actually be integrated into agricultural land. Number one, within the fence because of what we just saw in terms of the dual use and the rotational sheep grazing. And then number two, with what happens around the farm. So basically you have land that is already being farmed either by the landowners whose portions of land are not in the project but they still own and farm the land, or land that is farmed by abutting neighbors who've been doing this for a while. So those are basically the sites that are disconnected from the road. And then along the road lines, you have the setbacks, as I mentioned before. It's 60 acres of land, 3 miles of vegetative screen, but within those 60 acres of land, you could very well have row crops planted and harvested. So essentially what you have is a ring of crops surrounding the project, which once again, the inside of it is integrated as we have seen. I'm referencing, if you can see the FOA, that means the findings of fact and the provisions 2 and 3. Those lead us to the findings of fact that the project had to meet as part of preparing the application, the special exception application, and the provisions refer to the provisions in the ordinance. I can leave this up for a minute for you, but you let me know, and I just want to move forward. Okay, so with that, I will continue. So property values, I'll introduce Nick Kirkland. Rich, are you on the line as well?
I am here. Good evening. Hi, my name is Nick Kirkland with Kirkland Appraisals. I'm a state certified general appraiser here in Indiana as well as 3 other states. I've been accepted as an expert in property value impacts regarding proposed solar facilities and plenty of other developments hundreds of times. So to that end, we have done an impact study to discuss whether or not the proposed development would have any impact on the adjoining property values. So just to keep it brief and high level, I'll go through the slide here and our conclusions, and if there's any questions later on, happy to answer those. So we have, within the impact study, broker commentary, matched pair analyses or paired sales analysis, as well as discussion of multiple different university studies and their support for no impact on adjoining property values for solar facilities in rural areas. To that end, the impact study comes to the conclusion that there would be no impact on the adjoining property values, adjoining or abutting a properly screened and buffered project like is proposed here. And the setbacks that are proposed are sufficient to protect the adjoining property values. It is not uncommon in the area to find homes much closer from home dwelling to the panel than what is proposed here. So this is set back much more than other similar facilities in the area and across the country, frankly. And there are several positive implications that brokers have noted from market participants regarding protection from future neighbors that they would rather not live next to, such as subdivisions or new house development, as well as the typical it going into a livestock use as part of the agrivoltaics, which does have reduced dust, fewer odor and chemicals associated with maintaining row crops. To that end, I'm going to be passing it off to the next speaker, Paul. And yeah, here you go, Paul.
Thank you very much. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen of the board. My name is Paul Wyman. I am from Kokomo, Indiana, Howard County. And I'll share quickly with you my background and why I'm here to speak on this project this evening. I spent 16 years as a county councilman and a county commissioner in Howard County. And so I've been intimately involved in solar projects, wind farm projects from a standpoint of an elected official. I retired from county commissioner about a year and a half ago. I'm in my 25th year in real estate. I have my own real estate company, the Wyman Group. We've got multiple offices, serve several counties up in north central Indiana. And then lastly, last year, Governor Holcomb appointed me to the Indiana Land Task Force Committee, studying a variety of development issues regarding land around the state of Indiana, based on my experience from both the elected side and the private sector side in real estate. And so I want to share a few things with you tonight because I'm going to bring to you real, live Indiana facts. And a lot of times on these projects, there's people that are coming from all different parts of the country. And I realize that in the hearings I've been to over the years, that's created some stress for some folks, and they really want to hear what's happening in the state of Indiana. And so I'm going to start off with the land use task force that I serve on, or that I served on last year. There's approximately 23 million acres of land in the state of Indiana. And from 2010 to 2022, we lost about 340,000 acres of land to development. The majority of that land lost to development was for residential housing. What that means is about on average, a little over 20,000 acres a year. That is 0.00008% of the amount of land that we have in the state of Indiana being lost to development every year. It's incredibly minute. The interesting thing about that is in that same time period, the 340,000 acres that was lost to development, the productivity of our crops went up. And the reason it's going up is because of the phenomenal technologies, it's the great work that our farmers are doing, and we're getting more per acre. So we're not losing food, we're not losing productivity, we're not losing any of those sorts of things by development, and frankly, we need development in the state of Indiana. We have to have development, we have to have population growth. Without those things, it's hard to maintain tax rates, it's hard to maintain government budgets and all those sorts of things. So from a land use standpoint, it's really important to understand when you hear a loss of crops, food, those sorts of things. The truth of the matter is that's not what we're experiencing in the state of Indiana. Secondly, in the work that I've done on the real estate side, I have several projects in north central Indiana, and specifically in our community, in Howard County and Tipton County, where my offices are. They've been solar projects and wind farm projects. And so I'm very in tune, and I keep a very close study, an ongoing study, of property values right within those projects. And so the data that I have is real data, real time. The first one I'm going to show you, this is a wind farm study that I've had ongoing since 2018. And I know we're talking about solar tonight, but wind farm projects and solar projects bring out the same exact comments when it comes to property values. In fact, there's people that would argue that wind farms would be more detrimental to housing than solar would because of the flickering and the noise levels and all the different things that come with wind farms. But from 2018 through 2024, this is a wind farm that literally is between my two offices. And I've personally sold properties in the wind farm area. And in that entire study of all the properties, there has been no impact on property values during that entire time period from 2018 to 2024. I even pulled out the most egregious example that I could for you tonight. The black square is a house that went up for sale in 2022, and the red circles are all of the windmills surrounding that house. The home was listed for $400,000, and it sold at full value, $400,000, surrounded by all of those windmills. In the entire study of all the properties I have for that entire period, you would see very similar statistics. So the impact on property values from the wind farm in our area, no impact on property values. In Howard County, just east of Kokomo where I live, there are 2 projects. Both of these projects were started while I was a county commissioner. One is NG Solar and one is Ranger Power. This first one here, the black outline, is where Ranger Power is placing their solar project. Over the last several years, as this project has unfolded and received approval, the yellow highlights or the yellow bubbles inside that black area are properties that sold right in this designated Ranger Power area. And as you can see on this chart, these are the properties that have sold, and they have all sold either at value or within a reasonable value to their list price. Again, demonstrating no impact on property values. And if I follow up with the next project, which is the NG one, this is directly south. If I was to put the Ranger Power's black square on this screen, it would be directly on top of the black square there. You can see we've had 2 sales in this project, and both of these sales that went up in the last 2 years, both sold at full value. Interestingly, the one on 200 South on the bottom there, 116780 East 200 South, that property was going to be surrounded on all 3 sides by solar and still sold at full value. And so from my standpoint, I can just tell you personally, in my 25 years of experience, having been one of the realtors that have sold these properties in these areas, the property impact that you hear about, or that you may hear about, such as 10%, 20%, 30%, 40% property value drops, is just not factual. I have the factual data here in Indiana. I have the personal experience of selling these properties, and be more than glad to answer any questions that you have or share any more data with you as we go forward. Is there anything I can answer for you?
I appreciate the asking price and the selling price for closing your examples. Can you give us an indication of 5 years prior to these sites coming online? What was the market value? And I know things have shifted a lot.
Yeah, sure. So I'm glad you asked that question, because I compare the market study I do to the real estate trends as well. And if you look, the longest study we have is the wind farm, because it's been there the longest. And if you look at every sale through my wind farm study, it will identically follow the real estate trend. So if you look at, for example, in the last couple of years when the real estate market's been the hottest and the inventory's been incredibly low and people are getting at or above asking price, we've been experiencing that in the same wind farm area and solar area as well, and it's following the same exact trends. In a what I would call a normal real estate market, where your inventories are normal, your days on market are more along the lines of a 60, 90, 100-day days on market type of a scenario, you're looking at anywhere from a 5 to 7% list to sale price. I'm seeing the same exact thing in these areas during those times as well. So it's not the 20%, 30%, 40%, 50% that people claim it is. The reality of the matter is there are people that enjoy living by wind farms. There are people that enjoy living by solar farms. And you might want to laugh, but it's true. I mean, I've experienced it. I've stood with clients on these properties that have made these purchases and have made those comments. And if it wasn't true, it would not bear out in these sales prices. If people did not want to live by these sale prices would not be reflected the way they are. Thank you.
You don't believe those list prices are affected by it then?
No, I think people have been listing their homes in accordance with the market. So like if I was to do a market analysis on any one of those properties that were listed, I could show you where it fell within the norms of other comparable sales during that time period in the MLS. I could also show you where somebody tried to get too much for their property, or in one case, one property was listed that needed almost a complete remodel basically, and they still got a pretty strong value for their property. So our level of detail when we do this analysis goes that far. It goes into trends, comparables, the whole bit.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, so next we move on to health and safety. Again, this is a very big pressing topic. We have Tommy Cleveland on the line. Tommy, can you hear us? Are you online?
Yes, Francisco, I hear you. How do I sound?
Okay, perfectly. Basically, I will allow you to introduce yourself and just walk us through the information that we posted.
Yeah, gladly. Good evening, everyone. I'm Tommy Cleveland. I'm in Raleigh, North Carolina this evening, and I apologize I wasn't able to make it there in person for tonight's meeting. I'm glad that I've got an opportunity to speak to you in this way. I'm an engineer in North Carolina that spent my entire career working in solar, which has been nearly 20 years now. Most of that time I was with North Carolina State University, essentially a research and development group there that focused on solar. And now more recently I work for a small engineering firm, and we inspect and test solar facilities for electric utilities in North Carolina, South Carolina, and Florida. So I've been on the ground at literally a couple of hundred utility scale solar facilities in the last 6 or 7 years. And I've been closely studying the question of health and safety for about a dozen years. When I was at the University, North Carolina, I started to see a lot of utility scale projects being installed, and it was a new technology for the communities, and a lot of the questions came to me. So I became an expert on health and safety concerns, and I've since then stayed up to date with the latest academic research and industry trends on health and safety concerns related to photovoltaics. And while I was at the university, I was the lead author on a well-recognized public information paper on this topic of health and safety and solar. And then regarding this project, RDBE asked me to do a health and safety assessment of the project, which I did and put into a report that the board should have that goes into quite a bit of detail on the various concerns that people sometimes have related to health and safety. And I go in and in that report explain the concerns, explain, in every case when I look at the project and the concern that there is no risk to public health there, and provide the evidence for that. You can see on the screen a number of the topics that I dig into in the report, and to keep the time minimal here, I'll touch on just one of those, but I'm glad to answer questions, of course, on anything on health or safety. But most often, the most common concern I hear is toxicity concerns related to the solar panels themselves. Often it comes from either not being familiar with the technology or reading poor information about the technology. So I'd like to just describe the panels and what they're made of, and show that there is a lack of concern there. First, the panels to be installed at this project are silicon-based, and that's a panel that's been out in the world, out in the field for well over 40 years. built in essentially the same way today as it was then, with the same materials. So it's well understood what happens to these panels over time. Over 75% of the weight of the panels is simply glass and aluminum. And then the part that actually produces electricity is silicon. And then you have a layer of plastic and a layer of plastic above and below the actual panel, the cells that seal moisture away from the panels for the life of the project. And then there's tiny bits of metal that conduct that electricity from the cells out to the wires and out the back of the panel. So there's no liquids to leak. The glass up front keeps all the inside protected from the elements for the life of the project. And then those encapsulating plastic layers are a really heavy-duty industrial adhesive that keeps moisture away from everything inside for the life of the project. And the only thing in there that possibly could have any concern is there's a tiny amount of lead in some of the solder for some of the electrical joints. It's a few grams per panel that is sealing away for the life of the project. And I cite several studies that look at these worst case scenarios. What would happen if a number of panels got broken, and could any of that lead come out and have any impact on public health? And the conclusion there was, for the various worst cases they look at, it's still orders of magnitude away from having any potential for a health impact from that lead. It's just totally a non-issue, no health concern there. And that's often the most common concern that the folks do have. And the report, in a similar manner, goes into detail on the other topics that are covered on the slide there. And then I like to balance the concerns that folks often have about public health and safety with what is very clear, the impact to public health and safety of this project which is a very positive benefit. This project will put thousands and thousands of megawatt hours into the grid that will directly offset the burning of natural gas and coal, and therefore directly reduce that air pollution. And there's ways to make estimates of what is that public health and safety benefit from that reduced air pollution, and as well into the hundreds of billions using EPA's public benefit values for this project and the life of the project. So it's a real significant public health benefit, and there is no aspect that's endangers the public health or safety. So I'd like to wrap up there. There's a lot more I could discuss and touch on if there are questions. But in the sake of time, I'll end there.
Thank you, Tom. Just in closing, the illustration you see there is actually a panel that has been impacted and has been shattered. The reason that was put up there is that we get the question very often about, hailstorm happens or stones or what have you. What is going to happen to glass flying off and being a potential danger to people? Well, as Tommy mentioned, the cover is actually tempered glass. It's not regular glass. So the type of impact you see there is exactly the same type of impact you see on your windshield, of your vehicle. Right? It's going to crack, but it's not going to shatter like a window. That's that. Yeah, sorry.
Francis, I'd like to add another point to that since you bring that up. And what holds all those pieces of glass together is that encapsulant. And it's an EVA. EVA is the material, and it's the same material that is in many windshields. And if you get a cracked windshield, it still, in most cases, remains waterproof. And it's that same EVA layer that the solar panels have. So if you can crack the glass, and in most cases, at least for a period of time, it still maintains this waterproof layer, and it holds all those little bits of glass together so that it stays as one unit even when it's cracked.
Thank you, Tony. Okay, so next I'll go very quickly through this one. I don't want to be repetitious about the first part, but essentially just brings us back once again to the county's vision and values. And like I said, in particular, there is the control or the prevention of residential development. Again, in particular, north of 74, east of the State Road 3 interchange. We've already covered that. I won't go into that again. Looking into the economic benefits for a moment, so we have, as I mentioned, a $250 million investment, which translates into a $72 million increase in county assessed value over the life of the project. And that translates into roughly $1 million of property taxes per year, with no increase in resident property tax rates. So just one quick clarification. When we're looking at property taxes, I get asked the question, well, are my taxes as an A1 resident going to go up because of your permit? Well, let's break it down very quickly. Remember that this is an A1 area of zone. And so as such, what we're looking for is a special exception that would allow it to remain A1. So whomever lives in an A1 area is going to pay A1 area property taxes. What happens with the equipment or because of the equipment, because of the use, there's an increase in the assessed value of the footprint. Okay, well that comes to us because it is the use that we're giving to the land that causes that increase in assessment. We pick up the tab for that. And then last but not least, the actual taxes on the personal property, which are the improvements or the equipment. Okay, well that also belongs to us. So essentially the three tiers that you're looking at are A1, that remains with the landowner, increase in assessment, we picked it up, and property taxes on improvements, we picked those two up. That's that. And of course there is a very important component, which is the additional income that comes to the county by way of rent payments made to the landowners during the life of the permit. So, grid resiliency brings us back to the beginning, right? So,
well, I think, Francis, let's just go to the next slide.
Oh, sorry, excuse me. Yeah, sorry, okay, I'll put up with this one. So, based on the exception, special exception, permit application, and the associated information and documentation that we've provided the board with during the review process, we respectfully request that Decatur County grant the special exception to the Greensburg solar burden.
Why don't you go to the conditions and I'll speak a little bit.
Thank you very much. Okay.
Okay. So, hello again. My name is Mary Soliday. Proud to be a lifelong Hoosier. I live in the Indianapolis area, and so I'm very pleased to be with you all tonight. I wanted just to touch very briefly on a few things. I know this has been a long presentation, but I think it's been incredibly valuable, and I applaud Francisco for his good effort. So I'm going to touch briefly on three things. One is we are proposed conditions to approval, meaning if you were to be inclined, and we sure hope so, to approve this project this evening, these would be conditions that would be in your record. These are things that in your very capable legal counsel can confirm this, that we would be required to do all these things. So we're not going to read them, we know we're out of time, but these are things like what's in the panels and the setbacks and vegetative management. Is there another slide, Francisco, you can flip to? Stormwater, we didn't talk a heck of a lot tonight about it because time didn't really allow, but board, if you have questions about stormwater, I'm sure Stantec can speak to that. So well testing, that's questions been raised to Francisco many times, so we'll do that. You can see again, well drilling, we're not going to drill for water wells, for selling water. So the point is that they're in the record, they're in your packet, I think, and so we just want to point out that these would be proposed conditions to approval. The other two things I want to touch on, again, very, very briefly, are we have modified the decommissioning agreement. We heard talk about it at the March hearing. I have submitted to your, again, your very capable legal counsel, a revised decommissioning agreement that is a legal document that ultimately would be reviewed by her and ultimately by the county commissioners. What it does, or what we've enhanced it about, is be very clear about topsoil and topsoil removal, the restrictions on that, and keeping topsoil on site. So that decommissioning document absolutely has to go through, I think, pretty rigorous legal review. It does provide for security to secure the decommissioning obligations. That's a third-party security. It's not our word. It's a bank standing behind it. Wanted to point that out. The last thing, Francisco, if you could go to the slide of the findings of fact, again, I'm not going to read this. You are well aware, Board, of the 7 findings of fact that are in your ordinance, and we feel like the presentation tonight literally checks every box that we have met these findings of fact. And as you know, that is a legal obligation you have to determine for yourself whether we've met the findings. We feel strongly that we have. Obviously, maybe it's not obvious, it's obvious to us because we do these projects, but we don't hardly generate traffic. I mean, the reality is operationally there's very little traffic. In terms then of number 7, Francisco's done a really thorough review of your comprehensive plan. And really, if you look at the vision and principles, balanced preservation of ag land while protecting private property rights, and when you look at the fact this is a temporary use of land, it's not a permanent removal of ag land, we feel strongly again that we meet all findings of fact. So at this point, we will set the mic down. I think there's a presentation from some landowners, but Francisco, others of our subject matter experts are very pleased tonight to answer any questions that you might have. So we really appreciate everybody's patience. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
I just want to clarify, ask the board if we can proceed with the presentation from the landowners, or if you want to start a Q&A session, your decision.
Thank you. I think at this time, I think it would be wise for the board and everyone to take a brief 5-minute break to let us kind of catch up and get a bearings out of that presentation. Following that, we will follow with our agenda. Thank you.
Thank you.
Please make your break brief. Okay, we'll go ahead and reconvene. We're first going to offer the board an opportunity to ask any questions to Francisco about their presentation.
I just personally want to say thank you. I've seen a lot of different things that we haven't, and we've researched a bunch. But thank you, I appreciate things you brought to me.
Francisco, we would like to have the PowerPoint forwarded to us as well.
Yes.
Yeah, sure.
I've got a handful of questions, but I think that some of that will continue to be answered, so I'll hold those until the end, I think.
Scott, you got anything?
Same thing.
Yep, I'm the same. So, okay, so we'll proceed. So we will begin this next section. RWU has the landowners here that would like to speak. In respect with everyone's time, if we can hold that to 10 minutes, that would be great.
Good evening, thank you. Now that you've heard from RWE, we as landowners would like to share with you our support for the project. My name is Sarah Broussard, my husband is Scott Broussard, and we are both landowners that support this project. We want to thank you for giving us this opportunity to present to you the BZA board. Our goals are to provide a unified, concise message from us, the landowners, and to provide factual information to the BZA that supports your decision when you decide to make it. We respectfully ask that all facts and figures shared in this meeting be supported by independent research. These are the individual landowners and their families who are participating in the solar project in Greensburg. We ask that these families and others who support the solar project to please stand. Thank you. We are a group of Decatur County community members, and we are a multi-generational farming families that have contributed to the agricultural success of Decatur County. And as Decatur County residents, we are all, everyone in this room, are all part of the same team. And as community members, we have and will continue to support, invest in, and volunteer for the organizations that support the county and all of its residents. As you can see, this is a list of some of the organizations that we support. This does not include all of them, but these are some that a lot of them we already know about. We already support them, donate, and volunteer for. They are vital to our community's welfare and very close to all of our hearts. Farmers Feeding the Flock, Farmers Feeding the Flock is one that many of us have supported over the years. And as you can see, these families listed have hosted Farmers Feeding the Flock. You can read those up there. Our family, the Broussard family, is currently hosting this year. And as a host farm, we provide the acreage to plant. We plant the crop. Actually, my husband plants the crop. We oversee all aspects, or he does, during the growing season, and he harvests the crop. And now the Bread of Life that oversees the Farmers Feeding the Flock. And they receive all the proceeds that come from the crop that's harvested in the fall. And they take that, and that supports all that they do and provide for us in the community, all of us. Thank you.
My name is Kevin Meek. I'm a landowner, one of the ones who've been working with RWE on this project. I'd like to thank all of you for all your help. A lot of my thing has been truncated in my presentation, but the one thing I wanted to talk about was the project. We talked about spanning approximately 900 acres of, with the equipment and stuff, and just 57 acres being needed to be graded. Half of that is on my land. I just wanted you to know that we understand and are comfortable with that process. Thank you.
I'm Pat Hahn, and my wife Mona and I are landowners, and we support RWE and this project. What impacts may the project have on drainage? What impact will the project have on the land? Once planted with cover crops, the land will be used as pasture to be grazed by sheep. It will have a dual purpose of energy creation and agricultural use during the lease. As farmers, we understand the benefits of having ground-in cover crops like grass and alfalfa and the improvements that they will have on the soil. In partnership with RWE, we will monitor soil health throughout the life of the solar lease. Our expectation is that the land will exit the solar lease in a more productive state than when it enters the lease. And this is just another picture of the sheep grazing on the RWE project that is in Texas.
Hi, my name is Andrew Stewart. My wife Darcy and I have ground that we leased to RWE for this project. Along with me and my other relatives, we are a multi-generational farm here in the county and support this project. One thing that has kind of been brought up is, should we be concerned that this ground is going away and not producing food? Currently, 37% of our corn crop is projected to be used for ethanol. 47% of the soybean oil produced from the 2023 soybean crop is projected to go into biodiesel. So we are already energy producers as farmers. When comparing ethanol and solar, ethanol production on 1 acre annually will be able to have a vehicle travel approximately 15,000 miles. That same acre that's in solar will be able to produce enough energy to power a hybrid vehicle for 600,000 miles. So when comparing those two, every acre that's used in solar energy creation reduces the need for 40 acres to produce ethanol, so those acres can then go into true food and feed production. So when you talk about the 900 acres that's going into this project that will actually have solar, multiply 900 by 40, 36,000. That's the number of acres that will actually be going to more food and feed production, because that will not have to go to ethanol. So where will electricity go that is produced here? Here is a chart for Decatur County. We currently consume just over 370,000 megawatt hours per year. The estimated project is that 220,000 megawatt hours per year. So we still wouldn't be able to produce all of the electrical needs for the county, but currently we're only importing we're only producing 1% of our energy needs here in the county. So this will help Decatur County lower that amount for imports to the county for electricity needs. Here's another chart. So this is from 1980 on the left, all the way to 2040 on the right. This shows the total demand and supply of electricity in Indiana. The blue line is actually the demand, and the red line is the actual production. As you can see by the red arrow on the chart, that is the current year 2024. As
established power sources go offline, you can see that there's a widening gap within the state of Indiana because there's some rules and regulations on current projects that will have to either be majorly upgraded to then meet requirements by the government and other agencies. So this solar project will help to fill that gap.
Good evening. My name is Jay Raymond, and Paul and I are with the landowners that have been working with RWE solar project system. Our motivations for embracing solar. As property owners, we are doing what we consider will be the best to preserve and improve the quality and value of the land. Agriculture is becoming more uncertain and volatile. The solar project will provide diversity in our farming operations. The world overall is becoming more green. As property owners, we want to take an active role and participate in this change. To preserve the legacy of our land, our families will continue to own this land the entire term of use. As property owners, we strive to maximize the use of our land within the requirements of the law. As property owners, we support the Renewable Energy Initiative. A top priority listed on the Decatur County Farm Bureau policies is support landowner and property rights. As property owners, our rights to use our property should be respected. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Joyce Schoenbein, and I, along with my husband Rod and my brothers and sisters, represent the Fogg family as property owners and citizens of this community. We support the proposed RWE solar project. So just side note, we're not public speakers, none of us, so I think we're going to be well under our 10 minutes. So I'll give you a few minutes back. So regarding the ordinance and the concern for consumption of agricultural land, as property owners, based on what we have shown you today, we do not believe this project consumes agricultural land. Nearly half of the total acres under lease will be farmed per usual by the property owners, and the remaining acres will be used as dual-use agricultural acres. All of the active farming property members will continue to farm in this community. Our goal as owners is to preserve the character and the identity of the land and always be good stewards of the land. In closing, the property owners ask the Board of Zoning Appeals, has RWE met all of the general requirements of Section 2006 and Section 2008 in Article 20 that addresses solar energy facilities? If so, we respectfully ask the board to vote in support of all property owners' rights and the renewable energy project for Decatur County. Are there any questions from the board for the property owners at this time? Thank you for your time.
Okay, so just comment in passing, this is the last point. If you also would like to see the Landowner presentation, I'm happy to share that with the board.
Thank you.
With that, we wrap up. And once again, thank you very much.
All right.
Members of the board.
Thank you, Francisco. Okay, we're going to transition to our list of contacts that would like to speak tonight. I think first on the agenda is Jason. I apologize. I can't pronounce your last name. Nobody can. Please find a podium and share your name.
Thank you. So my name is Jason Kuchme, and I'm an attorney with the law firm Snyder, Morgan & Kuchme, 4211 Clubview Drive, Fort Wayne. and I represent a number of property owners here in the county who would be adjacent to this proposed project. I've been asked to come here tonight to speak against the Greensburg Solar's application for the special exception. The papers in the front pocket, I passed out the blue binder before the meeting began, and the papers in the front pocket identify my clients, which again include a significant number of property owners in the county. I think there's 32 listed there, and then I would also indicate that I'm speaking on behalf of Decatur County Citizens Stop Industrial Solar and Wind LLC. Just by way of background, I've been heavily involved the past several years in solar issues in about 25 different counties throughout Indiana, including Bartholomew, Pulaski, Elkhart, Rush, Fayette, Howard, Border, Delaware, Wabash, many others. And so I've seen a lot of ordinances, I've seen a lot of these solar applications, heard a lot of arguments, about the same arguments over and over again. But importantly, I've seen what industrial solar can do to a community, not the least of which is division among the residents, loss of jobs, and the removal of many thousands of acres of productive farmland. One of these projects alone typically utilizes thousands of acres. I think we're about 1,000 for this particular project, with hundreds of thousands of giant panels. You've got substations, cables, inverters, and all the other things that go into these. These are industrial utility plants that can change the face of a county for the long term, especially since once approved, don't kid yourself, in comes the next one, in comes phase 2, in comes phase 3. You're going to see a wave of these, as we've seen in other counties. I know Pulaski County, the last time we did a hard count, I think had over 25,000 acres under lease. This is not 0.00001% or anything like that. In fact, they continue to sign up additional properties, so the number's actually even higher than that. One recurring theme that I see in counties is leaseholders arguing that they have the right to do whatever they please with their property. But it's not that simple, and frankly, as you know, that's why we have zoning ordinances, to separate incompatible uses and to put restrictions on certain developments in order to minimize the impacts on the neighboring properties. And the impacts of this industrial solar, they are significant. And that's why you're required to consider a number of different criteria when you decide whether to approve this application for special exception. And frankly, that's why the application cannot be approved if just one of those requirements are not established. Among other things, those criteria for approval, they require that the proposal not be injurious to the community. Over the last several years, I've gathered and learned a lot of information regarding some of the downsides of these projects. Studies, they show that these industrial solar utilities will negatively impact neighboring property values, despite what you've heard today. The effect is generally seen within 3 miles and closer. Obviously, that impact is greater the closer you are to the project and the larger the project is. And while studies do support a negative impact on values, I always like to say that you don't need a study to confirm the obvious. People don't want to live next door to an industrial utility. They don't want to look out their windows and stare at thousands of panels. People move out to the country for a reason. And if you live near solar, and if you list your home for sale and nobody wants to come and view it, or if nobody wants to make an offer, you better believe that that's a negative impact on that value, and that's what's happening in Indiana. In your binder, tab 1, I've included some statements from brokers in Indiana, which confirms their client experiences and other communications. And those documents, they confirm just what I've said, canceled showing, people who don't want to, go in to look at these properties that are listed. Tab 2 in your binder contains an excerpt from an Indiana Court of Appeals decision regarding the Mammoth Solar Project. In that decision, the Court of Appeals noted a finding that was made by the Pulaski County BZA that it is undeniable and unavoidable that a significant number of 220 homes within 1 mile of the proposed site would see a decrease in property values. I've seen solar companies, as I do these all over the state, try to argue the contrary, like we've heard tonight. They say there's no harm. I've even heard some folks say that property values might even go up. But I would always say that you need to look carefully at what they're presenting. I've seen other circumstances where the solar company's data actually includes sales where it was the solar company that purchased the neighboring property for a higher price. Normal folks, I'm finding, don't want to live anywhere near these. Tab 3 in the binder contains a summary by an MAI appraiser of several peer-reviewed studies regarding the impact of industrial solar on neighboring property values. Those studies include several different universities, and across the board, those studies confirm what the local realtors have found, that there is in fact a negative impact on the property values. Tab 4 in your binder includes some slides that were used in a recent BZA hearing in Bartholomew County on a solar application. Jeff Billyford, who is a real estate broker in Columbus, Indiana, he reviewed the report that was prepared by Kirkland Appraisers, and it's basically the same report that was presented to you in connection with this application. When Mr. Hillicourt spoke, he confirmed in his presentation that Kirkland's report does not paint an accurate picture of the studies that he references and relies upon for his conclusions. For example, Mr. Hillicourt noted that Kirkland states that a Lawrence Berkeley National Lab study found a 1.5% impact within 1 mile of a solar farm as compared to homes within 2 to 4 miles from solar farms. But then he notes that Kirkland neglected to say is that the same report stated for homes within a half mile of a large-scale photovoltaic project compared to homes 2 to 4 miles away, they actually found a reduction in home sale prices in Minnesota of 4%, North Carolina of 5.8%, and New Jersey of 5.6%. That same study also stated that their results suggest that there are adverse property value impacts for homes very close to an industrial solar farm and those predominantly in rural agricultural settings surrounded by large projects, specifically in rural areas where the solar project displaces agricultural land uses and are larger, which is just the same as we're talking about here tonight. Mr. Kirkland's report also references postdoctoral research by Mimi Abashidze, and I'm sure I did a worse job on her name than anyone's ever done on mine. And that was titled Utility Scale Solar Farms and Agricultural Land Values. But Mr. Hillicourt noted that Kirkland failed to reference her 2019 doctoral thesis, which was entitled Solar Farms and Residential Values in North Carolina, where she analyzed 15,935 transactions and concluded that the construction of a solar farm decreases property values of houses located within a mile of a solar farm by 8.7%. The effect increases to 12.5% if the homes are within a half mile. There's many other examples that Mr. Hillicourt found where Mr. Kirkland was kind of just cherry-picking favorable statements in his report and disregarding statements and conclusions that actually found a negative impact. And he actually said that a true evaluation of Mr. Kirkland's own sources actually support a finding of a negative impact. And when you put these solar utilities in an agricultural district, you're destroying the rural character and you are taking important farmland out of production. Adequate farmland is, of course, critical to our nation's food supply, and these solar utilities, they eat up vast amounts of land. I don't think anybody can dispute that. I've been told that it can take generations in order to recover the fertility as it was when the project began, if ever. So it's not just simply a case of pulling out these panels in 30, 40 years and pretend like the project never happened. Tab 5 in your binder, I've included some photos of an industrial solar project in Stark County, Indiana. That first page is probably a pretty scary one, and hopefully that wouldn't be an issue if this project ever went forward, based on what I've heard tonight. But what you're looking at there is all the topsoil. That particular developer literally brought in the heavy equipment and removed all of the topsoil. The second picture shows flooding with the construction of the substation in the background. And as you look at the other pictures in that tab, they continue to show the flooding and just kind of the general industrial nature of the development with obviously the previous farm ground just compacted. And as you look at those photos, I would just ask, who would want to live next to that? Who would want to be surrounded by that, to literally have an industrial utility in your backyard? Tab 6 has some additional photos. That was a project that was being constructed in Indiana. I just kind of randomly came across it one day when I was driving around. But again, just look at those pictures, look at the industrial nature of the project, what it is doing to the farmland, the view, the destruction of the rural nature, and look at the substation, the size of that. And these industrial solar developments, they don't really benefit local communities, as is often suggested. The electricity, it's sold to the grid, it's sent off to who knows where, it doesn't necessarily stay local. solar companies' own experts in cases that I've been involved with have actually admitted that their projects will result in a net loss of jobs in the counties where they're located. Once these projects are up and running, there might be only, honestly, just a couple of new jobs, 1, 2, maybe 5 new jobs associated with that utility. Basically just a couple of caretakers. And on the other side of the equation, you're taking large amounts of farmland out of operation, which results in significant job loss, among other things. You're going to have less farmland, results in less sales, less seed, less fuel, less labor, less taxes. And these losses, they are significant to a community, and I would say that they far outweigh any perceived benefit. Tab 7 in your binder was a study that was done by a Michigan State University professor on a proposed project in Indiana. And that document confirms what I just said regarding the negative, direct, indirect, and induced effects of these developments to the tune of some millions of dollars. Another very important requirement for approval in Decatur County is that the project cannot interfere with your comprehensive plan. I don't know how that element just cannot be satisfied given the language of your comprehensive plan. I've included some portions of that in tab 8 of the binder. And your plan, it talks at length about protecting agricultural resources and preserving agricultural land. It's probably the top priority that I saw reading your comprehensive plan. And your plan even has a specific policy for alternative energy sources in your county. I've included that, I think it's at the last page in the binder. And in that regard, your comprehensive plan says that it supports individual on-site, non-commercial alternative energy sources. It then says that the county does not support the development of commercial alternative energy supplies that would consume agricultural land. In other words, it does not support the project that's before you tonight. The plan then actually recommends that zoning regulations should be updated regarding commercial solar, and that happened. Tab 9 in the binder is your solar energy ordinance. And right at the outset, the zoning ordinance, your solar energy ordinance says, it just reiterates everything that was in the comprehensive plan. So it's not just this fact that the county wants to discourage these projects. It's not just part of the comprehensive plan, but it's actually been incorporated into part of your ordinance. Tab 10 in your binder includes some recent findings of fact from the Bartholomew County BZA, where they denied a commercial solar application because it did not comply with their comprehensive plan. And specifically, their plan's goal of preserving productive farmland. Now, your comprehensive plan has the same stated goal, but it actually uses much stronger language. In fact, the language again says that Decatur County does not support these projects and in fact discourages them. And just like the BZA found in Bartholomew County, the farmland that's proposed to be in the solar project here will be removed from production. It will not be used for farming. It will be under thousands upon thousands of these panels. Greensburg Solar would have you believe that this is just a temporary project and that the land will ultimately be returned to its original condition. But that's not going to be the case. In 30 years, I think that was more than 30 years, almost 40 years, they said, is hardly a temporary use. That is a very long time for somebody to ask you to ignore the requirements of your plan, to ignore the requirements of your ordinance, and to disregard the protections and the goals contemplated by your plan. And you can't do that. You can't just ignore them for 5 years. You can't ignore them for 10 years. You certainly can't do it for 30 plus years. And Greensburg Solar has not decommissioned not a single one of these projects, I'm sure. And they cannot honestly tell you what that's going to look like in 30 years or in 40 years. So in closing, my clients appreciate your consideration of this very important issue tonight. And we request that you deny this application. Greensburg Solar simply has not met the requirements for approval. I've certainly touched on some of those. You're going to hear from some other folks after me, touching on either additional points as well. So, thank you.
Thank you, Jason. Thank you. Next speaker, if we could have come forward, Brian Robbins. Brian, if you could share some of the information that you've Chris?
Sure. I'll be as quick. I know I gave you guys a packet of information, and I'll just kind of highlight some of it. As the energy needs increase and more generation is required, many of these projects have been proposed throughout the state, the Midwest, and the nation. Solar developers have been communicating with the EDC, and Brian Robinson, the director of the EDC, I'm sorry for not explaining that, since 2021, which is why we stressed in the APC that an ordinance governing such developments was needed. We had no ordinance at the time. We understand the potential benefits of this project, but equally acknowledge the impacts on the current economic environment. For this reason, my board has decided to take a neutral stance toward the project and focus primarily on the economic impact analysis of the project as we would any other. I submitted to you a snapshot of Decatur County covering land use, employment, gross domestic product, and tax revenue sorted by industry sector. I've also submitted various analysis by Purdue University and other third parties, and I'll touch on some of those highlights now. By land use, of which 176,000 acres in Decatur County used for ag purposes, this project represents about 0.6% of overall ag land. It's about 0.7% of land used for solar or corn. Utilizing the investment numbers provided by Purdue University and RWE, it is determined that the property being considered for the project is an economic output of about $1,369 per acre if used in corn, and $975 essentially, and 85 cents per acre if soybeans are planted. And again, using the investment numbers provided by RWE for this project, and excluding the construction period, which represents a high investment and thus high economic output, but only for a relatively short period, as well as excluding any agrivoltaic contracts or dual use, which were outlined today. The economic output of the ongoing solar use of the properties is estimated to be $4,907 per acre. A multiplier effect of 0.8 was calculated for ag in Decatur County. You'll hear about the multiplier effect, meaning for every dollar of direct output, an extra 80 cents of economic activity is generated in the region. This is from Purdue University. An equivalent multiplier was unable to be determined for solar at this time, but was advised by Purdue that likely would not be equal to that of ag simply because the established industry here and that solar is a new industry to the state. The tax revenue analysis conducted by Baker Tilly was also included in your packet, outlining the real and personal property tax impacts. On this note, I want to be clear that there have been no discussions regarding any incentives for this project whatsoever. Utilizing a 2,531 AV rate for ag ground in the area, it's a rough average based on the ground values taken for the Beacon GIS services, and that's the area that's being considered. The projected participating ag ground currently brings in an estimated $32,067 a year in real property taxes. As a solar use, utilizing the state cap on assessment for our region, they have different assessments depending on where you're located in the state. For our region, it's estimated that properties will bring in $82,798 in real property taxes a year, an increase of $50,731. Very few, if any, personal property taxes are collected for the participating parcels, and any that would most likely still be continued to collect under solar use. However, and this was referenced previously, that an estimated 923,000 in personal property tax revenue will be seen by the county if used as solar farm. And the impact of these sums, this extra tax revenue, lies solely with the county elected officials and how they wish to handle them in the community. On behalf of the EDC, I also want to say that we do understand the social nature, the social impact of this as well. And we want to say that we are, and I personally would be glad to help anyone who wishes to protect their agriculture ground by putting it into a conservation, perpetual easement or something along the lines of even Harrison County, that set up a county-based conservation program, providing matching funds for those who wish to keep their ground in agriculture use in perpetuity. With this, I'll gladly answer any questions or anything like that. I know I provided a lot of information to you guys, and it was
You did, and we appreciate your efforts in doing so. I'll start with one. In researching some of that information you sent, I'm not a tax accountant by any means. In the Baker Tilly study that you referred to, it talked about reduced tax rates within the county.
Yes.
Could you please expand on that in more detail?
This will be, and that's in the Baker Tilly study, actually, and if I can find it, I can quote it. Yes. You will probably see, as you see, and again, these are estimates. I want to be very, very clear with that. And again, if this is not incentivized, not abated, or anything like that, and the funds go directly into the general fund, the inhabitants of Washington Township and Clinton Township should see a reduction in their tax rates. And they outline it there for $100,000 per home value, the average value in Decatur County being $174,000, and as well as 1 acre of ag land and $100,000 for the business realty. So, yes, so with that added tax revenues that you will see similar to the tax rate. Now again, will come to about maybe 10th, it's about a 10th of a percent or so. But across the board there. And again, all these estimates are done through tax rates will go up and down, and the state obviously has some say in how things go. So we're hesitant on some of these, but yes, it would be a tax break.
So to clarify for myself, the proposed increase in property and real tax that will be gained by this project would offset some of the existing taxes being paid, lowering residents' bills,
correct,
which would not mean a one-to-one gain in revenue. Is that correct? A one-to-one gain in, those are all new dollars realized. Some of them may be real new dollars into the community. Some will be used to offset existing income.
They can, and again, that's up to the elected officials how they want to handle this project. But yes, that's possible.
Okay.
Brian, I'd just like to say thanks. You have provided a lot of information. I think it was valuable to organize an analysis of the analysis, because obviously that can be concerning depending on who's providing the initial data. So I just want to say thanks. I appreciate what you have provided to us. Particularly the 6-page notes document was very helpful. So thanks a lot.
Yeah, and actually, I can see it clearer now. Actually, the Baker Tilly estimate, 2024, Washington Township, without abatement, the rate is $1.34. It's predicted by 2027 to go down to $1.26 and down to $1.23. Again, based on that rate, which again can fluctuate. And these are just estimates.
So unabated, those discount rates would just qualify for Washington and Clinton Township.
Washington and Clinton Township.
You mentioned as of date, there's been no communication on any type or request of any type of abatement.
Correct.
Do you anticipate one?
I don't think I've met a project that hasn't asked for one. But of course that actually goes to the council and stuff, so it's not our decision whatsoever.
Any other questions, Brian?
There is a lot of data there, and it's from third parties, and at that point, if you have any questions or anything like that, be glad to actually bring in the third parties involved.
Brian, do you have, should an abatement be requested, and I know that you communicated that you recommend, and should that happen, that you would recommend some kind of an economic payment in lieu of?
That has been done in other situations.
Do you have, I mean, it looked to me like basically it would be approximately dollar for dollar thing. We estimate what those taxes would look like and then do that in lieu of what those taxes would be. What is what's the reason for not doing an abatement for the whole duration or a long? It looks like the county basically gains control, more control of those dollars when that happens. Can you speak a little bit about the ups and downs of a development payment versus that coming across strictly in property taxes?
Well, again, if you do, what has been done in the past is that they abate the personal property taxes 100% for however many years. I think the state allows it up to 20 years perhaps. And then they shift that amount over to community impact payment. That is more flexible. It can be spent on special projects within the community. Any sort of debt in some cases, but it allows that community flexibility. But then again, what that does is take away that added excess value, and the tax rates essentially will kind of remain standard. It's similar to somewhat similar to a TIF approach to that, providing the local community more a flexible spending account, so to take on special projects, be it infrastructure, schools, what have you. And that would be, as I said, it would be up to local county elected officials to decide what to do with that.
Any other questions? Thank you, Brian.
Thanks.
Okay, we're going to transition to continue down the list of speakers at this point. From this point forward, we will be calling names of those to speak and ask those to come up, say your name into the microphone, and you'll have 3 minutes. We'll try to keep to that. If it's useful, pertinent, valuable information, the board may continue beyond the 3 minutes. But out of respect to everyone's time, please keep these focused. Do you want to call names? Do you want me to? I can. It doesn't matter. We'll start with Sheila Kirchhoff.
We have a PowerPoint presentation that kind of goes along with this, so it'll just be running in the background behind you guys. We will probably have some speakers that Mr. Kuchme pretty much covered all the topics we're going through, so if you do tell us to exit stage left, we don't have a problem with that. And like Joyce said earlier, we're not public speakers, so bear with us. So we'll let Jessica get the PowerPoint up. Thank you. My name is Sheila Kirchhoff. I live at 909 East, 500 North, Greensburg. Thank you for your time this evening. The following presentations are meant to capture the most relevant talking points of the local citizens that identified as the Decatur County citizens stopping industrial, solar, and wind. Our presentations are designed to be fact-based, point to prove that all 7 conditional use special exception criteria are not being met by RWE, also known as Greensburg Solar. We are the Decatur County citizens who live, work, and contribute to the county and whose daily lives will be affected by our farm fields being in industrial solar. What you will not hear from us is is opinions that have not been researched or statements about being against solar. We are not against solar, but we are against losing thousands of acres of fertile Decatur County farmland to large solar fields. Our Welcome to the City profile uses phrases like, welcome to the Tree City, home to the famous courthouse tower tree. If you are looking for rural town experience, then Greensburg is the place for you. Among rolling cornfields, Greensburg is the picturesque county seat of Decatur County, and that's taken from our county website. Furthermore, let me read to you the 3rd paragraph of our most up-to-date comprehensive plan. It reads, the quality of life in Decatur County is good. The people, economy, and the resources here are intimately interconnected to provide safe, sound environments for raising family, farming opportunities for business and industry, and scenic landscapes. It also goes on to say the county's small towns are meeting places for rural residents and gateways to the rural landscape for our county visitors. The rural landscape, covered in various sizes and types of farms, as well as woodlands and stream corridors, provides solace for those who prefer to live in a quieter and more natural environment. We are here to say we are not against solar, but we are against losing prime farm ground. There are more efficient and productive locations for industrial solar panels. Neighboring counties have businesses using solar panels on rooftops and over parking lots, using 0 acres of productive farm ground. We can look to our neighbors in Cincinnati, if anybody's been to the zoo. The building is the largest publicly accessible urban solar parking lot in the country. As local citizens, we ask you, why would we limit ourselves to decades of industrial solar contracts when industrial solar panels may be technologically obsolete in the near future? If we as a community want to utilize solar, let us establish a safer, more cohesive way to install panels that does not remove prime farm ground and limit our growth plans. We are asking you to deny this application. Collectively, we will prove that this solar application fails to meet all 7 conditional use special exception criteria and goes against our Decatur County comprehensive plan. Thank you.
Thank you. Vicki?
Good evening. My name is Vicki Fee. My address is 6466 North County Road, 700 East Clarksburg. And I will be speaking on how RWE does not meet the conditional use special exception number 1 of the voting and evaluation sheet. Conditional use special exception number 1 states, the approval will not endanger the public health, safety, morals, comfort, or general welfare of the community. I'm going to read directly from our Decatur County Comprehensive Plan under Vision Principles, page 20. Decatur County will continue to preserve and enhance its agricultural lands and activity. The county will continue to work to protect viable farmland, a thriving agricultural industry, and enhance the profitability of agriculture through agricultural support services and developing economic development partnerships that increase the demand for locally produced agricultural commodities. Accepting RWE's request for industrial solar panels will decrease the supply for local agricultural commodities in Decatur County. That will not only take away thousands of acres of potential crops, but it will also have a negative impact on the agricultural related businesses locally. One example is the decrease in retail sales to our local vendors who sell seed, chemical, and fertilizer. Secondly, there will be a decrease in the supply of grain, ultimately resulting in higher feed prices for our local livestock farmers who are feeding their livestock. Other businesses, including equipment dealers, repair shops, fuel suppliers, banks, lenders, and insurance providers will also feel this burden. Policy 1 states, protect the county's agricultural resources. Policy 2 reads, balance preservation of agricultural land while protecting private property rights. Farmers have to produce more on less ground than ever before. Food security is equally, if not more important than green energy. We are doing our part to contribute to green energy. We are producing it. If we accept this project tonight, we will be sacrificing Decatur County's greatest natural resource, our fertile and productive farm grounds. Let's remind everyone that Indiana is ranked in top 5 for production of popcorn, gourds, pumpkins, soybeans, corn, hogs, and ducks. If we are doing our part in feeding the world, why do we need to venture in this energy with all of its unknown, far-reaching consequences? This energy that does not even stay in our community, but rather on the grid. Not only does industrial solar go against our comprehensive plan, but it also jeopardizes the general welfare of our community. It will not enhance the profitability of ag services that support the agricultural industry locally, nor will it preserve and enhance agricultural lands and activity. I am asking you, the board, to follow the comprehensive plan and preserve production farm ground for farming and deny this application. Thank you.
My name is Fritz Roof. I live at 1606 East County Road, there in North Greensburg. RWE submitted a report completed by Mr. Richard Kirkland, a general appraiser. Mr. Kirkland also submitted a similar report to Bartholomew County Board. So you see, Mr. Kirkland has worked for many industrial solar companies, and he has submitted many reports very similar to this. Remember, an appraisal is an opinion, one man's opinion. One of his claims is some positive impacts expressed by people living next to solar projects include protection from future development of residential developments or their more intrusive uses, reduced dust, odor, and chemicals from farming operations, protection from light pollution, and they claim at night it is quiet and there's minimal traffic. My rebuttal is that Decatur County's comprehensive plan protects rural residents and agricultural land from invasive developments, just as it is written to prevent industrial solar from coming to our rural areas. I do not believe these claims from people within his report are in line with the rural demographics of Decatur County. We do not know whom these people cited are, nor do we know how well they represent the general population affected. The talk is that it controls county's residential development, and yet they claim real estate values are unaffected. Our comprehensive plan supports our county's agricultural roots, and we need to support the plan. This application has already divided neighbors, and has divided families, and it has divided friends, and will continue to do so for many years to come. It fails conditional use exception number 1 because it has already been harmful to the welfare of the community. It is hard to stand up here because I believe in property rights, but property rights are limited. That's why we have a zoning board. The very first subtitle under the vision and principle reads, what is in constant in Decatur County is that it is still an agricultural community and people recognize and support that, page 18. I know these folks have worked hard for the ground, but the ground has always been zoned ag preferred. There are limitations on every piece of property in the county because it is zoned. Industrial solar farms are not farms, they are not agriculture. In their own words, they are a commercial power generation facility. Please deny this application as it fails to meet conditional use special exception number 1 in regards to endangering the morals, comfort, and general welfare of the community. Thank you.
Jason.
My name is Jason Kirkhoff. I live at 967 East County Road 500 North, Greensburg, Indiana. Tonight I'll be speaking to how RWE does not meet conditional use special exception number 2 of the voting evaluation sheet, which states the use will be designed, constructed, operated, and maintained so as to be harmonious and appropriate in appearance with the existing or intended character of the general vicinity and shall not change the essential character of the same area. RWE states the project's anticipated useful life of at least 35 years represents a temporary land use and will not consume land for agriculture. They go on to say this proposed special exception is supporting future generations of farmers in the county through continued agricultural operations and multi-generational family land ownership. Page 2, findings of fact. Keeping in mind how this conditional use criteria reads, I will reference another excerpt from the Decatur County's comprehensive plan. The plan calls for the most productive farmland to be preserved and protected. It's that simple. Let us put this into perspective. According to the CDC, the average lifespan of a person in Indiana is 75 years old. That puts RWE's planned project at nearly 47% of the average person's lifespan. In addition, the average age of the farmer today is 56 years old. The definition of temporary is something that is not permanent or lasts only a short period of time. Almost half of someone's lifespan is not the definition of temporary. And in 20 years, when that farmer is no longer around, 20 years of potential farmland production lost and tied up in the solar lease, 20 years of hundreds or thousands of acres of food production lost to the next generation who went to college, studied an ag-related profession, and is looking to set new roots back here in rural Decatur County. This project's proposed use is not harmonious or appropriate in appearance with the existing intended character of the same area, and it goes against our comprehensive plan. RWE, once again, does not meet conditional use special exception number 2 of the voting evaluation sheet. Please deny this application. Thank you.
My name is Garrett Schwerin. I live at 4285 North County Road, 300 East, Greensburg, Indiana. And I'll be speaking to how RWE does not meet conditional use special exception number 2 of the voting and evaluation sheet. I believe in the future of agriculture with a faith born, not of words but of deeds. That is the first line of the FFA Creed. So I ask you, do you believe in my future of agriculture? Removing farm ground from production will harm those of us pursuing an agricultural career in this county from jobs related to crops, livestock, seed sales, or equipment repair. All these jobs are vital to our community, and removing productive farm ground from our county takes jobs from the future generation, people like me. Not only taking jobs, but it also takes away supply with no decrease in agricultural demand, not only in our county, but also worldwide. This project is a huge risk for our entire community. How many acres will it take? We've seen a change in acres after approval. How many more companies will approach us? We already know of another company waiting to put their application in. Wildlife, waterways, drainage, property values, the life cycle of commercial power facilities are unproven and untested. Decommissioning is an obvious concern, filled with the unknowns in the solar community. Will our ground ever truly be fit to farm again? How many projects has RWE actually decommissioned? We can't fast forward 30 to 40 years, but we can look back. There were no cell phones, internet, or email. Imagine what energy breakthroughs will occur in the next decade. RWE wants to push this application now and use our home as a money-focused experiment based on an application filled with speculation. Why are we in such a hurry? This is a multi-generational decision. In 30 to 40 years, many of the decision makers on this project will no longer be here. But my generation will be. My generation will be the ones dealing with the repercussions of the decision you make tonight. Why are you so anxious to bet my future on their claims? Please deny this application as it is not harmonious to our current and future generations of this community. Thank you.
My name is Sandy Prophet. I live at 532 Baden Court, Greensburg. I'll be speaking on how RWE does not meet conditional use, special exception number 1 and number 2 of the voting and evaluation sheet. I start by asking everyone in this room to think of a time or you've ever heard that we should replace productive farm ground with solar. Indiana Farm Bureau is the largest grassroots farm organization in the state, with more than 250,000 members whose mission is to protect and enhance the future of agriculture and our communities. With support from their 2024 policy handbook, 13.A.11 reads, if incentive programs are used for renewable energy projects, they should be used towards development on non-productive grounds. Under Agricultural Protections 15.B.1, it reads, we support laws that enable farmers to use farming practices and technology available to agriculture to provide feed, food, fiber, shelter, and fuel. Never do they state energy nor recognize solar as an agricultural product. The Indiana Farm Bureau policy also recommends the project be cited with regard to the productivity of farmland and be placed on marginal land and consider the impact on existing uses of land in the area. On May 26, 2023, the American Farmland Trust Policy Director, Tim Fink, went on record to say, the key question for our national solar build-out is not if, but how. The decisions we make today on how we achieve this critical climate goal will determine whether it strengthens rural communities and protects our best agricultural land for future generations, or results in large-scale permanent conversion of productive agricultural land. Solar development presents an opportunity for some landowners to receive steady, long-term lease payments, but concern over prime farmland conversion, land affordability and availability, and the overall impact of large-scale solar development is slowing the transition to renewable energy and could pose a long-term threat to rural livelihoods in landscapes. As a whole, we need integrations, not replacements. Sustainable green energy is meant to be coupled with production. Under panels, our ground is not being arrested, it's being neglected. My question is, why are we rushing that application without testing it or knowing more about this new energy source? It's because at the end of the day, this is not about agriculture, it's not about green energy, it's not about the future of farms, or the viability and the economic success of Decatur County citizens. This is about money. The application fails to account for our younger generation. It endangers the general welfare of the community. It is not harmonious to the area, and therefore fails conditional use, special exception number 1 and number 2. Thank you.
My name is Ellen Gow. I live at 6992 East County Road, 300 North Greensburg. I will be speaking to how RWE does not meet conditional use special exception number 2. RWE submitted a report, and the conclusion of this study is that there is no evidence of any negative impact on adjoining property values based on sales prices, conditions of sales, overall marketability, potential for new development, or rate of appreciation. We, the petitioners, would like to provide evidence that our property values will decrease if this solar project were to be constructed. Real estate broker Denise Spooner conducted 6 months of research on the impact of a proposed solar farm in Madison County, Indiana. She submitted a report to the Court of Appeals, Mammoth Solar versus Ehrlich, 2022, wherein it was concluded that houses surrounded by solar farm on all 4 sides would be worthless. Houses affected on 2 or 3 sides would suffer a 40% decrease in value. Houses within 1 mile of a solar farm would suffer a 10% to 30% decrease in value. And houses within 3 miles of a solar farm would suffer a 10% to 20% loss. Indeed, even the BZA's decision specifically concluded that it was undeniable and unavoidable that a significant number of the 220 homes within 1 mile of the proposed site would see a decrease in property values, a Kellens at Volume 5 at 180. Even without the recent Indiana data above, our group discovered more information about RWE and the outsourced data submitted in an impact study from appraiser Richard Kirkland. A quick Google search of the first paragraph of RWE's impact study will bring up over dozens of reports that Mr. Kirkland has performed for solar companies all over the country. RWE and many other solar companies use Mr. Kirkland to provide an impact analysis that then gets submitted to our local area and planning. This is used to help strengthen their case that no impact will come to those near or surrounded by solar in regards to real estate values. The major concern is the recurring use of the same paid party to complete these reports, using the same appraiser for the same purposes seems biased and unethical. I know this slide up on the screen is hard to read, but it's just one of many side-by-sides we took that compare the word-for-word information in each of the analysis that Mr. Kirkland sends to the solar company to then send to our BZA. For this meeting's purpose, we found a rather dated report from November 27, 2019, Dinwiddie County, Virginia, and compared it to our recent report. The resemblance of each and every report is the same. No impact was found, even after years of data and changes in the real estate market. Seems odd if you ask me, or maybe just inaccurate or unprofessional. To give you all an example of what's in this 100-plus page document, here is a snippet of the market analysis impact. This is a summarized section from Mr. Kirkland's research in our particular area. On the screen and on your handout, you will see how similar the wording is from the 2019 report for Virginia and our 2024 Indiana report. So I ask you, the board, are you willing to chance our county on such limited copy-pasted data? I ask you to make the right and certain decision and deny this application as it is not harmonious and is not for the well-being of the county, failing to meet conditional use special exception number 2. Thank you.
My name is Randy Noy, and I live at 3044 East Space Road, Greensburg, Indiana. I am a former 32-year career firefighter with 24 of those years as an assistant chief. I will be speaking on how RWE does not meet the conditional use special exception number 3 of the zoning evaluation sheet. Conditional use special exception number 3 states will be served actively by essential public facilities and services such as highways, street, police and fire protection, drainage structures, refuse disposal, water and sewer, and schools, or that persons or agency responsible for the establishment of the proposed use shall be able to provide adequately any such services. RWE has gone on to state that they have no need for any of the above, highway, street, police, water, sewer, etc. But they have provided an emergency response plan and requested training by area responders as to fire safety. Our major concern is there has been no outline as to what the training will be. What is the risk assessment? Will there be special equipment that is needed to be on hand? Note the statement, requested training. Does that mean in our local fire departments do not put in requests for training that none will be provided? It seems like training outline would be worked on as a collaboration with each department and one that is tailored to each department based on their skill set and equipment. You would also assume that there would be mandatory training that is required rather than requested for the protection and welfare of the public. Seems to be a lot of assumptions around how RWE will handle fire safety and lacking concern to the public welfare. There are 3 root causes to panel fires: design flaws, faulty products, poor installation practices, as well as electrical systems. These problems can cause arcs between conductors or to the ground, as well as hot spots, which can ignite nearby flammable material, such as grasses. There is also concern on how our local responders will have to respond to these fires. All the proposed sites are in rural areas that lack fire hydrants near the vicinity, which will hinder extinguishment in a quick manner. Solar panels pose a new and unique challenge to the departments that they cannot be taken lightly. Within uncertainty and lack of mandatory training, from RWE, this plan does not meet conditional use special exception number 3 due to the endangerment to the health, safety, welfare of the public and personnel in the event of a fire incident. Please deny this application. Thank you for your time.
Next up is Nick Wilson.
Good evening, Board. I'm Nick Wilson. I live at 3737 West, County Road 500 North, Greensburg, Indiana. And I will be speaking on additional fire safety concerns as it relates to conditional use special exemption 3. We have identified 4 major concerns. Of these, number 1 is the limited access. Proposed development is surrounded by a high security fence at least 8 feet high and locked gates. These will limit quick access to the scene. Additionally, it creates difficulty in reaching the fire in a timely fashion, as well as raises concern during ground fires for the fire department personnel. The fences will limit routes to escape from fast-moving fire, thus the risk of entrapment. Other concerns such as how first responders can maneuver to a fire property with limited paths around the perimeter. Number 2 is electrocution. The presence of a live electrical current makes it difficult and a life-threatening experience for firefighters and first responders to safely extinguish a solar farm fire with increased risk of electrocution. Because of these hazards, it often takes firefighters more time to address and assess the situation, which increases the potential for the fire to get out of control. Number 3 is toxic fumes. Solar equipment and panels burn off toxic fumes. Fire department personnel would need appropriate breathing apparatuses during such fires to protect them from the toxic fumes. In a large fire, neighboring properties would need to be notified to evacuate the area until air quality is restored. Number 4 is ground fires. These large areas of ground cover have always been a concern for fire departments due to large amounts of combustible material and wind. Due to the design layout of the industrial solar complex, normal tactics of trucks spraying water just ahead of the burn line cannot be used, thus reducing the effectiveness of stopping fires. This can lead to a large, uncontrolled ground fires that would also burn everything combustible above or near the fires, resulting in possible catastrophe. Large fires with toxic fumes will threaten neighboring properties, crops, livestock, and building structures. Due to the lack of transparency and due diligence from RWE regarding their fire response plan, paired with their relaxed encouragement for departments to request training rather than mandate this, RWE does not meet conditional use special exemption 3, and we are asking you to deny this application. Thank you.
Board?
Good evening. My name is Lori Geringer. I live at 1212 West Rebecca Parkway in Greensburg, and I will be speaking to how RWE does not meet the conditional use special exception number 4 of the definition sheet. Conditional use special exception number 4 says, will not impede the normal and orderly development or improvement of the surrounding property for uses permitted in the district. RWE goes on to say that the proposed special exception is compatible with adjacent land uses. However, policy 2, balanced preservation of agricultural land, while protecting private property rights, implies otherwise. The comprehensive plan reads, support the agricultural industry and sustain land in agricultural production through promotion of rural economic uses. Industrial solar panels are not promoting rural economic uses. Did you know that approximately 2,000 panels can be installed on 1 acre? Therefore, 1,000 acres could be consumed by 2 million panels. That is 45,145 steel piles, an estimated 37 inverters, an estimated 86,000 lineal feet of array fence. How many semi-loads would that be on our local county roads? The statement that follows on page 44 of policy 2 states to ensure effective agricultural zoning by prohibiting major subdivisions and other development not related to agriculture or agricultural industry. Policy 10 drives this home for us on page 59 when it states Decatur County understands that alternative energy technology is ever-changing. Therefore, the county supports individual on-site non-commercial alternative energy uses. Additionally, RWE claims that the solar project will allow the soil to rest for a minimum of 35 years, providing a recovery period and increasing the value of that land for agriculture in the future. We did a lot of research as a group, and nowhere could we find a published article that encouraged taking established prime farmland and taking it out of production so it could rest, all for the sake of increasing the value of the land after the resting period. I do agree that land which has rested or never been farmed can be revitalized and reclaimed. But what RWE is proposing should not be confused with what's actually best for this already producing high-quality Decatur County soil. This type of disruption is irreversible. We've been blessed with highly productive and fertile soil, so why purposely ruin productive farmland? Once again, I ask you to deny this application as it fails to meet conditional use special exception number 4. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Bonnie Robbins. I reside at 9076 East, County Road 300 South. I will be speaking to how RWE does not meet conditional use special exception number 5. Special exception number 5, exception number 5 states, project will not generate traffic on the existing street network that will cause congestion or unsafe ingress and egress within the neighborhood as a result of the development unless evidence is provided that improvements can be made to minimize or relieve the impacts. RWE states the project will include perimeter security fencing with a controlled point of ingress-egress. The petitioner will also have detailed safety protocols for traffic management and public access around the project during construction. RWE states the surrounding area will not be adversely impacted by traffic during the operation of the project, and the project will not generate increased traffic in the area. Our concern brings us to page 36 of the comprehensive plan. State Road 3 North and County Road 300 North, Stewart Road, are identified as primary corridors and roads in need of maintenance, paving, or widening per the Transportation Improvement Map. Stewart Road is also identified as a main collector road. A collector road, as defined in the comprehensive plan, is designed for slower speeds and shorter travel. This triggers concerns for the safety and well-being of the students and staff of North Decatur Elementary and North Decatur High School who travel these roads daily. The concern is the increased congestion on and around these sites for the project's duration, not just the construction period. Our friends to the west of us in Shelby County are already experiencing traffic jams of semis on their county roads, as well as increased traffic of contracted employees who are unfamiliar with the area. The public needs to be aware there will be many contracted workers in and around these areas that are not local hires, who lack awareness of neighboring property lines, as well as having disregard for private property. Recently, a non-leasing farmer experienced this when his field, which is in the middle of the slide, was driven on by RWE subcontractor. The subcontractors were working in an area and needed to get to a neighboring field that was signed on with the lease. In crossing this non-leased field, they showed complete disregard, disrespecting property lines and the private property of the non-leasing owner. Conditional use special exception number 5 is not being met by RWE as it will cause unsafe ingress and egress within the neighborhood. Maintenance and upkeep of multiple sites throughout this project will create congested traffic and damage to roads. The project will generate traffic and will cause issues in and around the neighborhood. We ask you please deny this application based on RWE not meeting conditional use number 5. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Melinda Hager. I live at 4870 North County Road 80 Northeast, Greensburg. I will be speaking how RWE does not meet conditional use special exemption number 6 on the voting and evaluation sheet.
Our concerns as local residents who live around these panels are validated by the US EPA. It says that solar panels contain metals like lead and gadolinium and can be harmful to human health and the environment. Solar panel waste can also contain other heavy metals like silver and arsenic, which are classified as hazardous at certain levels. These hazards are leached into the soil when the panels fail because they can be damaged due to storms, hail, and other incidents, not only contaminating the soil, but our water and our wells. Under the same conditional use criteria, RWE states that the project will be cited to avoid impacts to sensitive natural resources, preserving the natural features in our area, as well as to say that the project area is not believed to provide critical habitat for endangered, threatened, or sensitive species. Most of us here have had the opportunity of seeing bald eagles in our county. Eagles are considered a protected species in Decatur County, and as per the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service, they recommend a buffer of at least 660 feet up to a quarter a mile around the bald eagle nest to avoid any disturbance. This prohibits anyone without a permit issued by the Secretary of Interior from taking bald eagles. Take, in this context, is defined as pursue, shoot, poison, wound, kill, capture, or disturb. The Fish and Wildlife Eagle Conservation Plan guidance has a section called Risk to Eagles. This section says additional disturbances during energy development and infrastructure projects, such as solar projects, can stress the eagles to a degree that leads to reproductive failure or mortality. Lastly, RWE made the claim that the locations of the projects avoids any designated conservation areas in Decatur County. This is simply not true, since we know of at least one plot of pledged leased land that is known for being a site where arrowheads and many other Indian artifacts are frequently discovered. Knowing this, we called and spoke with Melody Pope with the Department of Natural Resources. Under her guidance, she informed us that any federal agency that proposes to conduct a project by its nature has the potential to affect historic properties, that company must go through an environmental review through Section 106 of the National Historic Preservation Act of 1966. At this time, Melody stated that our proposed project with RWE was not on their list of historical sites to review. Collectively, the proposed solar project will change the character of the area, risking the habitat and conservation of the land, resulting in a loss of availability to enjoy the landscape and wildlife. RWE does not meet conditional use special exemption number 6. Please deny this application, and we thank you for your time.
We're getting close on time, guys. If you don't mind, be ready to speak when the next person in front of you is wrapping up.
Jim Moore, you'll be next.
My name is Todd Maurer. I live at 3916 North State Road 3, Greensburg. I will be speaking to how RWE does not meet conditional use special exemption number 7. Conditional use special exemption number 7 states the approval does not interfere substantially with the comprehensive plan adopted by the Decatur County Area Plan Commission and the Decatur County Commissioners. RWE's response to this special exemption is the proposed special exemption is consistent with the solar ordinance put in place by the county following the comprehensive plan update approved in 2017. The project will promote the comprehensive plan's goal of developing and managing technological advancement and growth while still instilling resources and rural preservation. To give you, the board, some context, the Decatur County Comprehensive Plan states more than 130 times the use of the word agriculture. All the statements leading up to this conditional use, special exemption number 7, has proven the county commissioners, area plan commission, county staff, steering committee, and community members were in agreement of not taking up prime agricultural land for other than its intended use, agricultural production. As written in the comprehensive plan, in 2035, agriculture will still be prevalent because of the productive agricultural lands. Both large and small, we have been preserved by directing new growth in areas adjacent to already developed clusters or the existing communities. Page 20. Statements printed throughout the comprehensive plan are: Decatur County will continue to preserve and enhance its agricultural lands and activities. The county will continue to work to protect viable farmland, a thriving agricultural industry, and enhance the profitability of agriculture through agricultural support services and developing economic development partnerships that increase the demand for locally produced agricultural commodities. Page 41. Temporary, as stated in Webster's dictionary, lasting for only a limited period of time, not permanent. 35 to 40 years is not the accurate definition of temporary. Article 20 of the Solar Energy Facilities Ordinance states that the county understands that alternative energy technology is ever-changing. Therefore, the county supports individual, on-site, non-commercial alternative energy sources. However, pursuant to the Decatur County Comprehensive Plan, the county does not support the development of commercial alternative energy facilities that would consume agricultural land. The county discourages large-scale commercial development of alternative energy sources. Policy 10 of the Decatur County Comprehensive Plan mimics that exact statement. This project goes against our 2017 updated comprehensive plan. RWE, once again, does not meet conditional use special exemption number 7. Thank you for your time, and please deny this application.
Thank you. Jim?
I'm sorry. We got like a demonstration, so we got to do it in our own order. So this is my daughter.
You guys hear me good? Hi, I'm Lydia Moore. I am a resident of 4242 East County Road, 300 North, Greensburg, Indiana. I am an adjacent property owner, and I have a personal solar array. I'm sure everyone has used or at least heard of the compact fluorescent light bulb. It wasn't long ago that we were told that these bulbs were the light of the future, lasting longer and using less electricity than the regular incandescent bulbs. Now, we know that they don't last longer, they contain mercury, and they explode in our homes. Now we're being told that solar and wind is the renewable, reliable energy source of the future. The US and Canada have the capability to use a geothermal system that creates steam to turn turbines to generate electricity. Rolls-Royce is designing a generator that recycles its own waste, uses no water, and is no bigger than a semi-trailer. Cummins Engines are engineering a hydrogen-fueled model. These are the reliable engineering prospects that will replace fossil fuels. The useful life of a horse came to an end with the invention of a tractor. When technology develops in geothermal and other systems, the useful life of solar and wind energy will also come to an end. When this happens, millions of acres across the world, in our country, and in our own county will try to be getting rid of toxic junk. I ask you, the people, what instruction will you give to your grandchildren when it's time to remove and discard of these solar panels? This will cause financial hardship on generations to come. Solar and wind companies try to sound knowledgeable in agriculture by using words like set aside and CRP. What they don't know is that neither program was created with a purpose to take productive farmland out of production for decades. Therefore, relating solar fields to CRPs and set-aside land is like saying an apple is like a banana. I'd like to thank the board for their time and the opportunity to speak tonight.
Hi, I'm Irene Moore. I just want to say thank you for letting me come up here and speak with you tonight. I am a second-year animal sciences major at Purdue University with a pre-veterinary concentration. I am a resident at 4242 East 300 North, Greensburg, Indiana. I am an adjacent property owner and I have a personal solar array. Therefore, I have a distinct perspective on this case. We are told when the useful life of the solar panels are over, they will be pulled up and the land will be given back to agriculture in better condition than what it was received. That is a slap in the face to every farmer, saying that this company can be better stewards of the land than those who live through agriculture. We are told that sowing grass and having pollinators around the system will build the soil and its nutrients. If you could turn towards the slideshow, I have a soil test report. The truth is, we have pulled samples, soil samples on cultivated soil, soil that is in woodlands, and soil that has been in permanent grass and pollinators for over 100 years. As the results show, the grassland soil is not better than the cultivated soil. In fact, it is estimated by an agronomist to cost upwards of $100 per acre more to produce the same 200 bushel of corn that we produce now. Simply planting grass and pollinators doesn't solve a soil quality issue. If it did, then agriculture would not need fertilizer companies. Shading the soil with solar panels has consequences. If you could please take a look at the pictures of the grass versus the one in the sunlight and the one in the shade. Plant leaves in the sunlight absorb the sunlight and use it as an energy source for photosynthesis. Photosynthesis plays a huge role in the plant's life. The sunlight provides the energy the plants need to convert carbon dioxide and water into carbohydrates for the animals' consumption. Lacking sunlight affects the taste of these plants. On the slideshow to the right, there is tall, lush grass that grows under our solar panels. This indicates that the animals do not graze there. Outside of these panels, the sun shines and the grass is eaten, indicating the animals prefer to forage in the sunlit grass. Our sheep don't favor the grass under our solar panels. Why? It's because they don't like the taste, and there's a photosynthesis process missing under these panels. Any agronomist or biologist will be quick to tell you the soil contains microorganisms that require sunlight to live. These microorganisms play a huge role in agriculture. Shading the soil is not beneficial for the soil. Real quick, I would like to discuss something that I learned in my Animal Science 240 animal production class that I took at Purdue this year. It is also backed by an article published by the Mississippi State School. Ruminants must eat microorganisms that are on sunlit grass. Your ruminants are your cows or your sheep or your goats. They are an animal that has one stomach with 4 different compartments that compose a very specific microbiome. Without this microbiome, the sheep, the cow, the goat cannot digest this grass properly. That means they are not getting the nutrients they need. They are not growing to the size they should. And they can lack those nutrients, causing weight loss and diarrhea, which is an awful thing to have in your animals. So next, Jim Moore is going to come up, and I'm going to help him hold some parts of our demonstration.
Can they come on the stage?
Yeah, I'm good. I'll fall off of it. Can you hear me? Okay. My name is Jim Moore. I'm a farmer resident on 4242 East County Road 300 north of Greensburg. I'm an adjacent property owner and have a personal solar array. Industrial solar and wind will cause economic hardship on neighbors. Now I want to bring up the Snyder residence is on the screen. Drainage is a big issue. Most homes built prior to 1960 have top waters of the septic and also cistern connections to adjacent field tile. Crushing this tile with the construction of panels will cause these systems to fail. Who's going to cover the cost to install new drain or leach field? That could be upward of $15,000 on the Snyder residence, because that tile goes over to the to the east and connects into the neighbor's field, which is going to be pounded with posts to break up the drainage. Surrounding property owners could be financially affected. I know that one will be. And I've got up here, I guess Mr. Francisco bounces around like a baby in a can sometimes, but the last meeting specifically said they were not using concrete to hold their posts down, and instead they were using some type of an anchor that you put in the ground and you turned it and the wings spread out. Here I have an anchor that came from a utility company, and that's what that one does. It goes underground, spreads out, locks in, okay? Secondly, I have a kind of a miniature-sized end post created by farmers. And this one is held in the ground with the 2x4 attached to the bottom. And when you go to pull this out of the ground, you hope the 2x4 rocks off and you can get it out. Otherwise, you have to dig it out. And this is an end post, so it's on a property line or something. So that's that. So what do we have in common here? Both of these were designed to stay in the ground. So to pull this one out of the ground, it's going to have to be excavated. This will require excavating thousands of acres out of the ground. This will mix 7 feet of subsoils with fertile topsoil, causing catastrophic problems with soil health, fertility, level, and the ability to hold and retain nutrients. It will likely cause, in some areas, soil to be highly erodible. Now I want to go back to the Snyder residence. And on top of this, the RWE sent a letter out with a revised plan, and they took out some of the solar panels on Kramer's property across the road from Snyder's, and also subsequently helped me drain the Ralston farm, which goes through Kramer's field. They took these panels out, and just wasn't too long ago, Mr. Francisco said how they meet all the requirements of 250 feet from property lines. That's 80 feet from that property line. And that's the exact same map he had on that. That was not altered. And then I want to point out below that, right in front of the Snyder house, there's I don't know what that is. It looks like what they call a laydown area, which also known as an unloading spot. So that's like, to me, like a parking lot right in front of the Snyder residence. They were specifically asked what those notches were and why they weren't covered in solar panels, and they said they didn't fit. But right there, that same notch is in his map that he just presented, but it doesn't have the funny little sketch in it. So again, I don't know, like the Post, they tell you one thing, they do something else. They've told us, they sent me this letter showing this is what we're going to do, and we have met most of the criteria, and I say most because most is not all. So,
Jim, we'll pass the 3 minutes if you can please conclude.
Okay, I guess that's it. They just sugarcoat the plan and get you to think whatever they want. So thank you.
Next up, Albert.
Make it as quick as I can.
Susie, you'll be next after that.
Right. So I want to address something that I think is kind of a misconception here.
Albert, please state your name.
Albert Armand. I'm from 13094 South Scudder West. And I want to address something I think is a misconception here about the soil or the impact on the soils of this project. Nearly everything we're going to do here is going to have a negative effect on the ground. The construction, we're going to do a lot of compaction, moving heavy equipment around there. Those panels aren't going to be installed by a helicopter. Compaction is an enemy of yields every single time. We're probably going to have some weed issues in there, either before construction, during construction, or after construction. Even our grazing system that we're going to put in has its problems. Our grazers said that their stocking rate is a fifth of what online survey or searches show sheep should be grazed at. So we know there's some damage there. Sooner or later, we're going to decommission this project, which is going to entail digging out these anchors. You know, I've had experience with 3 pipelines run across our property since 1942. The first 2 you can still track after 80 years. The last one was 10 years ago. In 2014, we saw a 10 to 20 bushel yield loss in that from the disturbance of the soil, yet they moved all the subsoil to the side to minimize the mixing. When we come in and dig these holes out, we're going to dig down 7 to 10 foot. We're going to end up mixing topsoil and subsoil. We're going to leave a permanent scar on Decatur County from this. I think we'll see at least 80 years after decommission, because we're seeing that with our pipelines, possibly forever. I'd ask that you not let this scar be placed on our county. I'm done.
Thank you. Susie?
Good job. Good evening, Board. My name is Susie Dean. I want to thank you for the opportunity to be here tonight. I reside at 1522 South Mill Creek Road, Greensburg, Indiana. And what I would like to present is the adjoining property owner's letter of February 22nd, 2024. We as neighbors and landowners who have signed below have legitimate concerns for our homes and properties in close proximity to the proposed solar project by RWE in Decatur County. The proposed project consumes a tremendous amount of prime farm ground and surrounds several of our homes. Our main concerns are as follows: loss of land value and ability to sell or rent our homes and property in the future. For many of us, our homes are our biggest investment, and we do not believe it is fair to burden us with loss in value of our investment or the inability to find a buyer at a loss. How is that fair? What about our property rights? We have noticed that we are being asked to take on this burden without financial consideration or compensation. We can't help but notice those who did sign leases for prime farm ground won't end up having solar panels in close proximity to their own personal residence. Why? Health issues due to being close to a charged energy area surrounding our personal homes. View. We much prefer our current view of agricultural areas, and this is why we decided to purchase where we live. We are not looking forward to fields of glass panels, steel structures, or the glare. Noise. We know about the humming noise made by the electrical equipment per our conversations with those who are burdened with its current projects. Flooding and soil erosion. We are following several other projects that have had ongoing issues in flooding and soil erosion during construction and after construction, damaging adjoining properties and causing safety issues. Safety. Toxic fumes from solar panels that are burning and also grass fires from overgrown vegetation are a major concern for our safety. PFA chemicals from solar panels that are damaged via windstorms or hailstorms like we had in our neighborhood a few years ago. Weed control. We have seen and read about overgrown vegetation inside and outside of fenced areas. This will lead to excessive weed control issues on our properties. It is our hope that our local board of zoning appeal members who are to decide on this matter look at how it affects all in the community and not just for the perceived financial gain of a few. Our county comprehensive plan was written to guide our future land use by our county leaders and updated in 2017. It clearly defined being against using good farm ground for industrial solar projects. We believe this is still the public's opinion on this matter. Thank you.
Along with that, we've already submitted several of the signatures to this, but there was some that came in after we submitted, so we're going to submit those tonight to finish up those that are on the record that agree to the letter.
Thank you. Jessica.
I'm the last one, I promise. So my name is Jessica Harmeyer, and I live at 4668 South, 950 West Greensburg. Thank you once again for your time tonight. I would like to tie all of this together for the board and for our fellow county residents. But first, I want to commend the concerned citizens who spoke this evening on facts and policy, rather than emotions and opinions. As I listen to all of your concerns, strengthened by references to our county's comprehensive plan, I'm reminded of policy 1 and 5 as it reads, protect the county's agricultural resources. While the county does not want to stop development in agricultural areas, they want to manage its location and is designed to preserve as much prime farmland as possible. Policy 1 and 5 have a recurring message. Establish clear guidelines for approval of rezone from agricultural uses to non-agricultural uses that still protect prime soils and minimize loss of productive agricultural uses. It also goes on to say, limit the amount of land taken out of agricultural production, with a focused growth approach where new significant development will be developed in and around existing cities and towns. I say all of this to drive home what the entire focus was of those committee members who wrote our county's comprehensive plan back in 2017. It was to ensure that any new development to our rural county was compatible and posed no threat to public health, welfare, and continue to support our agricultural related businesses. On page 76, it talks about interpretation. The comprehensive plan does not contain the actual decisions that have been made. However, it does serve as a reminder and provides guidance to our community's collective vision for the future development of this area and should be interpreted as such. So I ask you to reflect on all of the concerns that your community members have brought forth to you tonight. This proposed solar project not only goes against our comprehensive plan, but it lacks to meet all 7 conditional use criteria. Approval would devalue the community and its rural residents who call this community home. Approving this industrial solar project goes against the grain, both literally and figuratively, of our community and its livelihood. Approval would confess a disregard to our heritage and violate the intentions of the comprehensive plan itself. Make the right decision tonight that not only impacts your local neighbors and community members today, but those for many generations to come. Thank you, guys.
We are well past our 10 o'clock proposed time limit. I think in that effort, we do still have folks that were willing and wanted something to say. I want to make sure to give them that opportunity. However, in light of the information that we gained this weekend tonight, I think it'd be best if we table this topic. Yep, look for a motion to adjourn. A motion to adjourn second.